Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you. I'm Mr. Beat, and this is 10 Questions with Mr. Beat. Today we have Matt Baker joining me. He is so much more than just a YouTuber. In fact, he was a big deal before YouTube. He came to the YouTube a little bit late to the game, you could say a bit, because before that he was becoming well known for making charts, useful charts. I'm sorry, that joke, really bad joke, never gets old. But the charts are useful. And so if you're not familiar with Matt, he is a former history teacher. He helped start a school in Sri Lanka. And he can correct me later if I get any of this wrong. But he lived there for several years, and then came up with an idea, kind of as a hobby to started sharing materials that he had developed while teaching, and those materials was charts to help students learn history. It made things more visual and therefore easier to learn, which is how most of us learn history, I think. I always gravitated towards the charts and the graphs and the photographs, especially. I'll never forget that old photograph of John Calhoun, and I'm like, who the heck was this guy? And he was a big deal, and look how crazy he looked. Anyway, I digress. Matt makes videos now, and they are wildly successful. Some of his most successful videos deal with family trees, looking at ancestry, genealogy. But his biggest posters that he's probably sold, I think, are his timelines of world history, American history. And in fact, he has a couple of books with his timelines. One of them is behind now. Sorry about that. Sorry, Beavis. This one right here. Yeah. So without further ado, may I introduce to you the one and only, the one and only Matt Baker of Useful Charts.
Yeah. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Matt. Yeah, Matt's a great name, isn't it? A lot of us, a lot of Gen X millennial Matts out there.
Yeah, number one baby name of 1975. That's
Same
me.
with 1981. Our parents were unoriginal.
That's right.
Yeah, but thanks for being here. You're one of the swellest people I know. You've always been really cool to.
You say that to everyone. I've seen your live streams.
Well, you kind of have this maturity about you. Like, you and I are among the eldest here on this platform. We're in our 40s, and I feel like at the same time we're kind of hip for being in our 40s, because we were early at we grew up with the internet in the early days, and I think we kind of have our feet in both, one foot, we're constantly learning new things, keeping up with newest trends while still remembering how it was.
I hope so. A lot of people get shocked actually because I guess I have a young sounding voice. And when I first showed my face for the first time, people were like, oh my God. Or when I mentioned my kid, who's I have a kid that's more than 20, and they're like, wait, how's that possible? I'm like, what did you think? I was 22.
You became a dad when you were 16, obviously. No, yeah. I didn't know that either, actually, how old your oldest was. So yeah.
Two kids, 18 and 21.
All right. Well,
they're technically adults.
Weird. Yeah. Well, I forgot to say the formats. Yeah, how we're doing this. If you've never seen this or heard an episode of this before, we've both come up with 10 questions. I'll show you. Open-ended questions for each other's. We haven't shown them to each other ahead of time, and the idea is that this will create a better conversation for you all to hear, and just for us to partake in. So
you're more old school than me. You have your questions written on pencil and paper. I have mine on a screen here.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, I still write out a lot of stuff. In fact,
extra hit points.
when I read books for videos for research, I still do the old school write out the notes because
I do
back,
too.
yeah, because the dexterity of it. I read a study once that says like you're something like 5 times more likely to remember something if you write it down. And ever since then, I'm like, I'm going to write it down. You know, I don't know if it works for me.
Yeah, my wife makes fun of me because I have notebooks like everywhere, like half, written in, or I'll just random page write something down. And then I can never find what I need to find.
Yeah, that can be a problem. At least, yeah. But okay, so.
Oh wait, sorry. One thing before we begin,
yes,
I gotta say congratulations because I heard a rumor that you just earned your 2nd silver play button.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Or is that a secret channel? I don't think it's a secret channel.
I don't appear on camera on that channel, so a lot of people don't know.
The Beat Goes On is Mr. Beat's 2nd channel. He has 3 or 4 channels, but it's his 2nd largest, and he does mostly music stuff over there. And he just hit 100K subscribers. So congratulations, Mr. Beat.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. See, you're a swell guy. Thank you very much. Yeah, so The Beat Goes On, my other channel. If you haven't found out about it, you might like it. It's mostly music history, like you said. And so, oh yeah, do you have anything else that I missed that you like to promote? Like, obviously, your website's just usefulcharts.com, right?
I find it crazy when people ask in the comments on my channel where to buy your charts. Like I literally put it in the pinned comment in the description. It's the name of the channel.
Yeah.
There's often a buy at usefulcharts.com. So it's really easy. Usefulcharts.com. You'll find everything.
I'm going to post it in the chat. Just
okay. Yeah, it's not hard to find.
Yeah. So I'll start us off with questions here, but I want to say the audience, if you have questions as well, hold on to those. If we have time, we'll answer those at the end. So, but I have a little thing here. Let's see, a little ticker to keep us on. There we go. First question.
Fun.
So this is an easy one to start with. How did you first get into the chart making business? Like it was a hobby when you started, but how did you kind of realize, oh, wait, maybe I can turn this into a business, make money from it?
Yeah, well, you gave a little bit of the story. I used to be in Sri Lanka. I first went there right after my bachelor's degree, stayed for a year, but then missed it and decided to go back. And I helped start a school, and I was a teacher there for a long time, like 7 years or so. But when I came back to Canada, initially, I didn't have a job, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was doing some tutoring, and I developed a lot of educational material while I was teaching overseas of just kind of a general nature. And so I started sharing that online, and people were like, oh, that's really cool. Can I use it in my classroom? And I'm like, yeah, of course, sure. And then I thought, hey, I need money, and people are interested in this. So put the 2 things together, and I was like, let's make a little website and people can download PDFs and that sort of thing. And it just one thing led to another. And it just went from a neat idea to a hobby to a part-time income to a full-time income, blah, blah, blah. So
I first heard of you when I was teaching, this would have been maybe 2013 or 2014 or something. Like another teacher told me about, showed me one of your charts. That's how I found out about you. I don't know how they found out about you, but here in Kansas.
Yeah, that was before I was on YouTube.
Right.
I actually saw just the other day, Shannon pointed it out to me. I have a direct message from you on Twitter from the year 2015.
I didn't send that. That was automated, by the way.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, there's a bot I set up for anybody I followed.
You spammed me.
I spammed
8 years ago.
I did.
Cool.
And
now we're friends. So who says that spam doesn't work?
Yeah, well, it doesn't work for everyone. But yeah, so your posters, and one of your posters is right. Well, you can't actually kind of see. There it is.
I see it down though. Yep.
Yeah. But for many years, your posters were in my classroom.
Cool.
One's back there. Your posters are not only in classrooms all over North America, but all over the world. Do you ever really, this isn't one of my questions, but do you ever really think about that? Like, have you ever been?
It blows my mind because
You'd be like, have you ever been someplace far away and you at a school, you walk in the room and there's your poster on the wall, and it'll kind of
Well, I haven't walked into a lot of rooms in the last 3 years because of COVID and stuff. I haven't been traveling or whatnot,
burst in, break in.
randomly walking into schools. But when people share stuff online, like I love seeing it because people don't often think to like share stuff like that online. But I'm like, hey, but the coolest thing is, what's that TV show with the comedian Fluffy?
Yes. Big guy. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. His moniker is Fluffy, and he had a TV show there for a while, Mr. Iglesias.
Yes.
I don't know if it's still on. I think it was on Netflix. And he has a poster or two in his classroom on that show.
He had a show where he was a history teacher.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another popular TV show right now about an elementary school.
Abbott Elementary?
Yeah. Supposedly one of my posters is in one of those TV rooms.
Oh my gosh.
In those rooms too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
By the way, the show is called Mr. Iglesias. I don't know if the audience heard that, but and then can we try to find, if anybody has a link, find it.
Yeah, what's Fluffy's real name or other name?
Enrique Iglesias is his.
Oh, that's like his real life name, or is that his TV
real
show?
life name?
Oh, okay.
And in the show, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I get emails asking for permission ahead of time. I guess there's some big sci-fi movie coming out later this year, and they actually asked if they could use one of my posters because the lead is an archaeologist or something.
Gabriel Iglesias. My bad. Yeah. Why did I say Enrique? Is that the singer I'm mixing up with? Am I racist? Okay, sorry.
Dude, we're only 12 minutes in, and
okay. But yeah, that's cool. I didn't know about Abbott Elementary. I'm excited. That's a good show.
I haven't actually watched it, so
I've only seen like part of one episode. So anyway, if you're watching and you can find the clip, share it in the chat, and I'll try to show that while we're talking. Anyway, your turn to ask me a question now.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to start off with something easy. What happened to your beard?
Yeah, because you're part of the bearded club.
Well, I got excited because I don't know, a couple months ago you just started having a beard, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Beat has joined the beard club," and I was like, "That's a good look, man." But then, boom, it's gone.
I might bring it back someday. In fact, my daughters were really happy when I shaved it. They did not like it. My partner, my wife, Mrs. Beat, she actually enjoyed it. But I began to get boogers in it. Like when I would try to look, I didn't like
that well, just as I was about to take a sip.
Yeah. Yeah, I got boogers in it and snot and also food. And that got annoying. And when I would drink my coffee, it would just, and also my face breaks out. And like, if anybody watches my videos, they know that I have adult acne. I even take medication I've taken medication, so it's not as bad as it used to be, but I still, it would cause my, around my mouth to break out. And so, yeah, I might bring it back, but it's just kind of good especially when it's getting hot out. I just shaved it last week.
Okay.
Yeah. It really made some people upset. Sorry if you liked it.
Well, I'll tell you a small beard story. When I first met my wife, I had a beard and she didn't like it. It was scratchy on her face and all that.
Yeah.
And so she got me to shave it off. And I looked so ridiculous. And everyone thought I looked ridiculous. So she had a lot of gay friends. And I don't know if it's a stereotype, but gay guys, they take good care of themselves, maybe better than us straight guys. So she asked some of her gay friends, how do you keep your beard nice and smooth and looking good? And she got some tips on some, products or whatever. And then I decided to grow the beard back, and I've kept it ever since. And she's happy with it, and I'm happy with it. And yeah,
got to get that beard oil in there. I got some.
That's right. Oil. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's people just assume it's not work, but yeah. Keep it trimmed up, looking good, especially around the lips. If you want to still be kissing your wife, you gotta be careful. Yeah. So anyway, so history and headlines is here. Good to see it. Another Matt.
Yeah, all the mats. We should have a big Zoom, like with just see how many mats we can get on
He's
one
about
screen.
our age, I think, too. I think he was
A
probably
little younger than me, I know, but
yeah. Xenials especially. Anyway, all right. So my second. Oh, we're on to second question. I got to make sure. Moving right along. What are the top 3 charts you've ever made? Your
top three in terms of sales
not
or
sales, like your favorite, your top
my
3
favorite.
charts. Yeah.
Well, probably the 3 that I have on the wall behind me. I know. Can you see
Holy
it?
crap, that works out.
Well, I'll
Totally
start with
didn't plan this.
the one there that you showed the book of. Wait, I can't. There we go. Timeline of world history. That was my first one, right? So you got to love your first one because it's been around the longest. A couple years ago, I did a complete redesign of it. So it's just been a part of my life for a long time, and I've kind of seen it grow. So, and I think it's also the most useful of the useful charts because it's very general, so everybody can appreciate it. And the reason I made that chart to begin with, I've always liked charts, and
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here, folks. Breaking news.
I've got, you can't see, but over here I've got a huge collection of other people's charts. Here's like a really old one that I have. It's a kind of a similar timeline. This is actually the chart that inspired useful charts. I saw this like when I was 6 or 7 years old in the back of a Bible, and I thought that's a cool way to understand history.
Yeah.
But I was always disappointed with history timelines because they're most out there are very Eurocentric, although they're getting better. Let me put it this way. For a long time, charts went out of style. Like they were really popular, I think, in the Victorian era and then early 1900s. They were very popular, and a lot of people made charts. A lot of companies sold charts, and then they kind of like went out of favor. So, like when I was growing up, 80s, 90s, if someone had a chart on the wall that was a history chart, now science is a whole other thing. There's always been charts in science classrooms because you got the periodic table, you got the planets. It's kind of a no-brainer. But history charts, like if you went into a history classroom, even today, you're probably going to see like more like posters of a person, like a Martin Luther King Jr. or a, George Washington star, or maybe just some flags or something like that. But you don't get a lot of charts. So what happened was, I think people that did like charts had to then go find charts that were out of date, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So before useful charts came around, the number one selling timeline on Amazon, and it's still there if you go today, it's called Adam's Synchronological Chart of the Universe or World or something like that. And it sells a lot and people buy them, and I've seen them in classrooms. But that chart was literally made in the 1860s. Wow. So not only like, and they actually updated it. Like at some point, someone using a computer like filled in from 1860 to today, but they kind of followed the same format. But the rest of the chart, they left the same, which, I mean, you kind of think that history never changes. And of course, history doesn't change, but our understanding of history changes.
Right.
So, for example, in the Victorian era, they understood history in a certain way, focused on certain areas and neglected other areas. There's certain discoveries that hadn't been made, like archaeologically speaking. So there's so much missing from that chart. And like, if you look at it, like 90% of it is like European countries and then the United States, and like very little about China or India, and like zero about Africa. Other parts of the world. So you get this sense that nothing happened anywhere in the world outside of the white manosphere. So I guess I'm going on a bit of a rant because I'm passionate about charts. But I guess what I'm saying is what got me started was I wanted to make a chart in a similar style but include everybody. Like put the African kingdoms on there, put the Asian kingdoms on there, Islamic empires, which were like just as big as the European ones, if not bigger. Make it more fair. And that's what got me started. And so that's why that chart means a lot to me, because it's kind of the genesis of the whole thing. So sorry, I talked too long about that. You asked me for 3. So number 1 would be the timeline of world history. Number 2, you probably can't see it well, but the second one is that's the writing systems of the world. And I did that one a couple years ago. And why I enjoyed that one so much is that's probably the one that I had to collaborate with other people the most on, because basically it's just alphabets there you go. Alphabets and different writing systems from all over the world. So obviously I don't know all these languages or know how to write or speak. So I had to get a lot of help for this one from like both linguists and speakers of other languages to make sure that I was presenting the information correctly. So it was a really collaborative thing. Like I met people all over the world that were giving me tips and information, and I just really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Plus, there was a little bit of a childhood memory in this one too, because back when I was a kid, we didn't have this thing called the internet. Instead, we had this thing called the Encyclopedia Britannica. Or actually, I think in my house it was Funk and Wagnalls. Does that sound familiar? As a encyclopedia brand.
I had a different brand. I think it was what was it? They were blue. I remember them. I would just read them from beginning to end. Yeah.
New World. Exactly. Me too.
New World Encyclopedia.
Yeah, like I think it was a thing where people went door to door, and you would get like the A encyclopedia free or something.
It's so expensive.
Yeah, it was like this, mass marketing scheme or something. But anyway, at some point, my parents got a set of encyclopedias, and they were on the shelf. And I, being the nerdy, education interested guy that I was, would just read from the encyclopedia. And at the beginning of every section, so at A and B and C and D, it would show the letter D like in Hebrew or in Greek.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so I can remember as a little kid saying, okay, I'm going to make a chart of this. And so I got a piece of graph paper and put A, B, C, D along the top and tried to like chart them all out. So I had all the Greek letters and stuff. And I got very confused because I was young and I was like, well, how come Greek doesn't have a letter for this? And English does. And then I started getting confused, but now I understand how languages work. But so in a sense, that chart over there is kind of okay, now I'm an adult and I can do it properly.
Yeah. So much of what we do is like stuff that we were really doing as kids. We're just a lot better at it now.
Yeah.
We found a way to make money off of it, which is great.
Yeah.
I used to make little books when I was a kid, like just informational books. Like there were little textbooks. I would cut out pictures of magazines I found. I glue them on there. I would color it, draw diagrams, pictures. My mom would be like, "Why are you making those?" And I'm just like, I mean, it's not like anyone was ever gonna see them. I just made them for myself. It was weird. I was a weird kid, but essentially I'm still doing the same thing. Fortunately, I have an audience now.
Yeah, exactly. You're still weird, Mr. Beat.
Well, what's your the third one that you like?
Third, I'm gonna have to go with the one that's on the wall there. It's the evolution and classification of life. It's strange because people know me for my royal family trees, and I didn't include one of those in my top 3. The whole royal family tree was kind of random. That's just what took off on YouTube, so I kind of went with it.
Yep.
But I was originally not necessarily into royal families or something. So yeah, this one I really liked. It's my only science one, really. Again, it started out with me not being able to find a good chart of evolution that went all the way from like a single cell to humans, step by step. I think somewhere around that time I'd read Richard Dawkins had a book. I forget what it's called, but it basically goes through every stage all the way to humans. Now, of course, that's very human centric or whatever. But we are humans, and therefore that's what we're most important. Like that's what's important to us. A lot of evolutionary charts out there, like they'll show you, 12 different types of mushrooms, and most of us really don't care about mushrooms, or maybe a biologist does, because they're like, there's these really important differences in some sort of scientific reason. But for me, like, I just wanted to see animals, like how is a cat related to a dog, or a vegetable, like how is a potato related to a carrot. And so I wanted to like chart the things that the average person would care about and show how they're all related and how they all go back to that single cell. So that's what I did. And this one, actually, what you're showing on screen right now, was designed almost 10 years ago. So it is overdue for a redesign. And that's actually one of my next big projects on my to-do list, is to redo this. Because 10 years, I guess some things have changed in the field of biology and how they classify things and understand things. So I want to make sure it's accurate and probably update the colors a little bit and so forth. So
you need to make it more woke, don't you?
That's right.
Sorry. I couldn't resist. How long did it take you to make this chart? Like 10 years ago when you made it, from beginning to end?
It's really hard because I don't sit down and work 8 hours a day on one thing. So like, that's when my kids were a lot younger, and we'd like go to the swimming pool in the summer. And I can remember sitting on the side of the pool with a book, like making notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But several months at least, from like research to design to tweaking and all that. So
yeah, but hey, still selling it. Hey, that's one great thing about this,
yeah.
They're honestly, I wasn't too familiar with this one, and this might be my new favorite one. I'm really looking forward to the redesign, because this is typically not what I'm interested in. Although I will say, Dawkins, he was the one who got me into this. Like, I remember watching, this would be in the early years of YouTube, coming across a video of him explaining evolution to some random high school kids, I think. I think the video is probably still on YouTube. But the way he told it, it was just so mind-blowing. Yeah. And I was like, he is so eloquent and such a good communicator. Like, I compare him also to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like, they're the ones who got me into science when growing up in school, I was not into science.
Right.
We got some super chats here. Well, thank you guys.
I know Emperor Tiger Star wants to know when I'm doing a chart for rock, metal, punk subgenres.
I would love to help you with that.
Yeah. My warehouse manager, we have like a small warehouse now where we keep all these charts, and he organizes shipping to people. He's a huge like metal head. He's actually older than me, so he knows everything from 1960s to today. So he might have to help me on that, because honestly, music, I like listening to music, but I'm not knowledgeable about music in the way that some people, like Emperor Tiger Star, I know he knows a lot about music. Unfortunately, that's just not my skill set, but it certainly would be cool.
My specialty is punk pop and emo, because that was like those from 1998 to 2006. Yeah. My formative years, that's all I listened to. That's a great.
Emperor Tiger Star, hit me up on Twitter, because I do know I found a really cool metal chart for my friend who's also the manager of the warehouse. I'm gonna like get it printed for him sometime. Somebody else made it, but it is kind of what he's asking for, and it's pretty cool. So if he reminds me on Twitter or something, I'll find the link and share it.
Thank you, Jim. But they're wanting to. Do you have any charts on evolution of things like the book? I'm not quite sure.
The book format?
I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, I'll answer it this way. So I have the one book. Like, most of my charts are only posters. We did the one book, Timeline of World History, through another publisher. They're actually just within a few months publishing two more. One's going to be a royal family, and one's going to be Bible stuff. Evolution, maybe some point. the publisher was actually a little concerned about that because they mostly publish in the States, and in the South, they worried that an evolution title wouldn't do well in like Texas and stuff. So I was like, well, whatever.
It probably do better than they think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Emperor Tiger Star, thanks for
He's
that.
going to contribute. Big collab coming to you.
Him and I, we talked a lot when he was on here for 10 questions. We talked a lot about music because we're both pretty passionate about it.
Yeah. Pop music ended with Sinatra.
Didn't mean to show that, but I love that.
It's funny anyway.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, Jacob. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Your second question. Go ahead. We're starting to.
Okay, well, I have one more kind of fluffy one until I get into a little bit more deeper stuff. This might be easy. Who is your favorite history YouTuber with less than 10K subscribers?
I always forget the name of the channel, so I'm going to look it up. Dang it. It's under my personal account. I don't watch these under my Mr. Bean account. So let me go to, I wonder if I can do this. I can do this. So her name is Catherine. What's her last name?
Oh, the Yorkshire?
Yes.
She's from Yorkshire?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are familiar with her as well.
Yeah. She has a video. I don't know if she wrote the song herself, but it's Bye Bye American Pie, but it's the Battle of Hastings 1066. I don't know if she wrote that herself, but it's absolutely brilliant.
This is the same person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Catherine War.
If you search her channel, do like 1066 or something, and there's like she's singing Bye Bye American Pie. Yeah, the day King Harold died. That is an amazing song.
Time ago.
My favorite video of hers is the Vietnam War video she did. I haven't watched all of her stuff, but
what's her sub count now?
She's up to almost 7,000 subs.
Okay.
So
yep.
Most of the channels I follow are a lot bigger, but I want to give a shout out to.
I think I saw, because I see her on Twitter. I think she's a tour guide at some historical place in the UK. So,
well, dang, I'm going to be there soon, actually, in the UK.
Oh, really?
Hopefully, some of us history tubers are going to meet up. Like,
is that your first time going to the UK?
Yes, very excited.
I'm jealous. I love Great Britain, the homeland. I can say that as a Canadian. You can't say that as an American.
Yeah. Well, I've rarely even been out of the country, embarrassingly enough. I've been to Canada twice, been to Jamaica, Cayman Islands of Mexico. But yeah, never been to Europe. And then someone told me the other day, well, that's not the real Europe. You're just going to UK. Right. I'm like, oh, come on.
It's the English safe Europe.
Well, we're going up to Scotland too. So we're going to take a train up there to Edinburgh. So
jolly good.
It'll be vacation. It will be, I'm not planning on filming much, honestly. I don't like to mix that.
Just enjoy it, right?
Yeah. And the whole family, I mean, my daughters had never been out of the country before. We got them passports in 2019. Planning to go on this trip in 2020. Something happened in 2020, so now we're finally getting to go now. Thank you, Chandler. I saw parts of it. The whole thing was an hour and a half, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but I plan to one of these days.
Me too. Yeah, I saw parts of it. I've watched his whole Jehovah's Witnesses one and the Mormon one, because as you know, I'm interested in religions too, especially the weird ones. Sorry to any Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses out there.
So there's always Scientology to be even weirder.
Yeah. So Christian Science I actually know less about, but I will watch his full video someday because I'm actually going to be talking about them, I think, in the next episode I'm doing on the denominations. So that's out in like 2 more weeks, I think.
Nice. There's also this YouTuber who has he also goes through all the denominations.
Yeah, ready to harvest. I'm collabing with him. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, all my Christian denominations video, it's a collab with him.
I didn't know that. Holy crap.
He's a nice guy, Joshua.
Okay. Yeah. Shout out to Ready to Harvest. I had a question related to that, so I might as well ask it next.
Sure.
So my religion question here. What? Oh, where'd it go? Oh, and you have a PhD in religion or psychology of religion, right? That's correct.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that you have a PhD, so you're really Dr. Baker. So you should.
I try to be hip. The hip doctors don't ever say I'm Dr. So-and-so. They just say I'm so-and-so.
Well, I would totally like put that everywhere. I would like at Starbucks, putting it like, who's this for? Dr. Beat. I would totally change my channel name to Dr. Beat especially to differentiate from the other guy. Anyway, so yeah, you have a PhD in psychology of religion. A lot of folks don't know that. But why does religion in particular fascinate you?
Easy answer, because I grew up with it. I talked about this in my most recent episode of the Christian Denominations Family Tree. I grew up in a very weird, I called it in one of my videos a cult. I have a video that says I grew up in a cult.
Yes.
And I talk about it. Normally, when I'm doing more academic stuff, like when I'm talking about the Christian Denominations Family Tree, I don't like to use the word cult for anyone because it's just kind of derogatory and
negative connotation.
Different people will say who's a cult and who's not. So it's not a very technical term or academic term. But since it's the group that I grew up in, and while I loved it, there was also some bad stuff. So I feel I have the right to call them a cult because I survived it. But it was a very fringe religious movement, kind of connected to the Seventh-day Adventists, but more extreme. We were really into the end of the world. We were into British Israelism, which is what I talk about in the I Grew Up in a Cult video, which is the idea that now King Charles would be sitting on the throne of King David, and the British people and the American people were all actually Israelites. And therefore, everything that God talks about in the Old Testament is really about us. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a blanketed white supremacist sort of thing. So there's some nasty stuff connected to it.
I mean, at the heart of every religion is supremacy, like
in one way or another, yeah.
Yeah.
But I get a little bit not angry, but upset when people say, well, all religions are cults. And I get what people mean by that. Because anyone's religion that's not your religion seems weird and crazy. For someone who's an atheist, the idea that there's a guy in the sky is crazy in itself. But I still think there's a way to distinguish between a cult and a religion. Basically, religions are cults that have become mainstream and that we're kind of used to it. Like the idea that you'd walk into a building and seeing people kneeling and praying, like that's not going to feel weird to you. You're going to be like, okay, they're praying. That's a thing that people do, right? Whereas if you walked into a room and, I don't know, someone was slicing a goat open and smearing blood all over their face or something crazy like that, you'd be like, what the heck have I walked into, right? So cults are just a little more extreme. They're usually like led by usually a single guy or a single leader, and everyone like worships them and thinks they're great and doesn't question them and that sort of thing. So the more like authoritarian it gets kind of culty. And so our church the church that I grew up in was very culty in that way. Like nobody ever questioned the leadership. We all kind of believed the exact same thing. So I was a little kid, right? And so I was growing up in that environment. And so then as I became an adult and got out of that slowly, obviously, I had the question, what the heck was that all about? And I wanted to learn more. Like, why does this happen? Why do people believe weird things? How come some people believe this weird stuff and other people don't? And other people aren't into science and other people are new agey. And so it fascinated me. And so then I just went down that road of studying, and then of course I was overseas in Sri Lanka, which is mostly a Buddhist country. So I learned about Buddhism, and then I met Hindus and I met some Muslims, and I'm like, man, what's this all about? So I got fascinated, still fascinated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Joe Rogan was the one who said that religion is just cult plus time as a
Yeah, kind of.
qualification. But every religion seems to have some kind of hierarchy for the most part. There are exceptions to that. I notice some churches denominations in particular, are very decentralized, and they're more appealing to me. I get that. But I noticed the larger trend these days are for those who still identify as religious, especially younger people. It's they have less allegiance to a specific denomination. They're non-denominational is still like seems to be the last hope for Christianity. Like, Jesus is my personal savior type of folks.
Yeah, but it's funny because there's a meme that someone just shared again with me the other day that has it's like one of those Scooby-Doo things where they're taking off the mask of the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And it says non-denominational, and then they take off the hood, and underneath it says Baptist. So like a lot of these churches that say they're non-denominational are not actually non-denominational. They're usually like non-denominational can be a denomination in a sense, because the word denomination just means a random category of people that have a lot of things in common. And so if you say non-denominational, I could give you like 10 bullet points that if you walk into that church, you're gonna see this, and this. So slap a label on it and call them whatever you want. It's a type.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't thought about that too much. That's obviously it's a marketing thing. They're trying to get the youth in there.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, it's not about the dogma. It's just about the cool stuff about Jesus.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Well, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, I had at least one religion question here. Nice. I guess you haven't watched any of my denomination thing, and that's fine. But I'm sure you're.
I've watched a couple, I think.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the main American, denominations: Presbyterian, Baptist, Pentecostal, whatever. So if you had to join a particular denomination for a year and go every Sunday, I'm not saying you have to believe what they're teaching, but you have to at least go sit there every Sunday for a year. What church would you choose to join, and why? It's not about belief. It's just about hanging out with these people.
Does it have to be Christian, or can it be?
No, it doesn't have to be Christian.
Yeah, I mean, there's many answers to that. I always thought it'd be cool to like hang out with a bunch of devout Buddhists, kind of like Ace Ventura did in the sequel, When Nature Calls.
I didn't see that, but
just go to some mountain in Tibet and meditate with a bunch of Buddhist monks.
Oh no, sorry. This was in America. You can't go to. You can't just use this. You can't use this to take a vacation.
Ah, dang it. Okay.
Yeah, you got to stay in Kansas, bro.
I think. Didn't you make a video about the Quakers?
Yeah.
I think that would be one. I've always been fascinated with the Quakers. A lot of really influential people in American history were Quaker.
Probably the closest thing to Buddhism you're going to find.
Yeah, no, a lot to admire about Quakers. Let's see, maybe Unitarian. Like I would say, I've had friends and acquaintances that seem to have really positive experiences with that. But yeah, I think some of my audience already knows that I was raised Catholic, and I'm no longer Catholic, but I still have strong connections with that culture and with especially the teachings of Jesus. I actually own a copy behind me of the Jefferson Bible because
nice.
I always was drawn to his teachings, not the miracles and the dogmatic stuff which most of that came later, by the way.
Yeah.
Most of that, I was raised to fear hell, and actually, I just have come to the realization recently that it caused trauma on me.
Sure.
I never realized how. I should probably be in therapy for this. Actually, maybe this is my therapy. But yeah, I never really confronted that because it really did mess me up. I think it still messes me up as a 41-year-old man. And so I think that's the thing. The main thing that I'm not a fan of, that I think I don't care what religion people are, but if it's entirely based on fear,
Mm.
I would highly recommend you get out of it.
Well, from a psychological point of view, fear works. That's why they use it.
Yeah,
It
that's one of
works.
the easiest ways to control a group of people is fear. Yeah, definitely. That's why politicians, I mean, especially these days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fear. But no, what you're saying is extremely common. You know, as people who grew up in any sort of weird. Well, I mean, okay, Catholicism is different because Catholicism is definitely not a cult. Although, I mean, we could make that argument, but what I'm saying is it's very mainstream. It's not fringe, right? It's a billion people.
Yeah, the largest organization in the world still.
So it's huge, right? And it's very mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, we also have a scale that we talk about. I can't remember the exact terms, but I think it's something like high demand versus kind of low demand. So Catholicism, I guess it depends on where you are in the world and what church you go to, but Catholicism can be a very high demand religion. Like, you know, you're expected to do all these things and you're expected to take it very seriously, and it's drilled into you very seriously. So it can be a very high demand sort of thing, and that impacts people big time.
Yeah. Yeah, well put there. I really did enjoy your book, by the way. How many books have you written anyway? You've written like.
Well, the one you're talking about probably is just. Actually, I happen to have it right here. That's just my PhD thesis.
Yeah.
That I.
Oh, that was just your thesis.
Yeah, that's my PhD thesis.
Yeah, yeah.
So I put in a book format to share with people because a lot of people wanted to read it. But beyond that, yeah, there's the timeline of world history, and that's just my chart. Like I didn't write the text.
Yeah.
However, they're doing the timeline of the Bible. It's coming out this year sometime, and for that one, I actually wrote the text.
That explains why you had so many videos about that are religious.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's I think my first real book because I wrote it as a book. And it was important to me because I wanted to share, like you said, you have the Jefferson Bible and you really appreciate it. Well, that's kind of the viewpoint I come from. Like, look, all this Bible stuff, it's part of our culture. It's part of our history. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. And people have 1,000 different ways to interpret it and believe it. You know, some people think it's literal all the way from Adam and Eve to today. And then there's all kinds of different positions in between. It doesn't matter. That book is the most important book in human history. Like whether you like it or not, like it's impacted, you know, the founding of America. It's impacted every single war in Europe. It impacts what's going on in Africa and Asia and South America today. Like, but so many people look at the Bible and it's either rubbish. You know, I get comments like, "Oh, the Bible is just a bunch of lies and made up by Bronze Age sheep herders." And first of all, it was the Iron Age, and they weren't sheep herders; they lived in cities. But I get the point. You know, why are we, you know, choosing this one ancient book over another? Well, that's the way the ball bounced. So we got to deal with it. The fact of the matter is there is history in there. It's literature. It's all kinds of stuff. So why don't we view it in the same way that we view the Iliad or, you know, other works of ancient literature? Study it, know it, be aware of it, know which parts of it are history, which parts aren't. And like, you don't have to throw it out if you don't believe it in the way that, say, a Pentecostal person believes it. And on the other hand, those people that do believe it as the literal word of God, I wish they'd also study it more in kind of the historical way.
Oh, that's not going to
understand it. Like,
I'm sorry. Like the people that are most passionate about the Bible tend to be the ones who are not that familiar with it, especially contextually. I hate to say it's such a broad statement, but like I've read the Bible from beginning to end. I did in college, but I never did growing up, and I should have. You know, it should be.
But I think there's an in, especially with young people. Like I was a young person myself who grew up being taught that everything was 100% literal, and we didn't believe in hell, but we believed in like you were just gonna like die forever kind of thing. Like lake of fire, we called it, and then you'd no longer exist. But it was a bad punishment nonetheless. Anyway, my point is that I was taught all those things, but I sought out and found other ideas and then grew in my understanding and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of young people out there who they're used to the Bible being taught one way in church. And so they're like, hey, here's a video about the Bible.
Yeah.
And they can like
put
hear
their guard
somebody
up.
else's idea about it. And
Yeah.
grandpa might say, oh, you better stay away from that guy. He's the voice of the devil. I'm not saying I'm trying to convert people to some sort of liberal understanding of things. I just want to show people there's different ways to think about it. Like, if someone wants to hear me on a video talk about the Bible and talk about how it's literature and there was no Noah's flood and all this sort of stuff, if they firmly believe that there was a guy named Noah with animals on an ark, that's fine. But at least hear the other side, make up your own mind. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you just come at it as a historian, which is honestly, yeah, it's not as fun. I don't think you take away a lot of the sensationalism, I think.
But I think it's more fun though.
But that's you. See, that's
I know. I'm a history nerd, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I get your point. And I said about young people. I'm not trying to say that an old person would never change their mind. You know, hey, if you're old and you change mind, hey, that's cool too.
Yeah,
that's ageist. You were racist earlier. I was just ageist. So we're both gonna get canceled.
Oh, we can all be ageist. I actually changed my mind recently about neuroplasticity. I read an article about it, and it was like, basically, it was based on a study that found that actually older people, neuroplasticity is actually maybe just as high as it is with younger people.
Oh, so we don't get locked in, like.
Yeah, we don't get locked in, like
okay.
And actually, I made a video about that too. Like, do people change their minds? And my old assumption was the older you get, the more.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of taught to believe. Set in your ways.
And as it turns in, that hypothesis is actually pretty flawed. A lot of people do change their minds when they get older. Yeah, and that's a big reason. What drives a lot of societal change is the elders finally saying, you know what? Okay, yeah, gay marriage is okay. Like, there's been so many people in my lifetime older than me who's like come around to gay marriage, for example. That's just an issue I always go to because it's easy to point out. But yeah, like it's amazing. Okay. While I'm looking up the next question, thanks for the super chat. Tomorrow is Malcolm X's 98th
Are we
birthday.
only on number 3? We only did 2 questions so far?
We are now on, wait.
Oh, we're on
4. Now we're on 4.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess I'll ask you this one. So we've mentioned the school you were at. You mentioned your experience in Sri Lanka. You helped start this school, right, in Sri Lanka?
Mm-hmm.
And you said you were there for 7 years, and it was like kind of in the middle of nowhere, like it was a rural area. I just want to know, like, and then you went back. Like, what drew you? I just can't imagine myself doing something like that. So what really motivated you to do something like that?
Okay, so we were just talking about religion, and in a way, this whole story kind of ties into my religion story as well.
Oh.
So I've actually been married 2 times. My first wife, my kids are from that first marriage, and then I remarried again about 8 years ago. So it was my first wife and I that after university, we got married. We met at university. We got married. We went to Sri Lanka as kind of like a post-university, see the world, teach overseas sort of thing, like ESL, like a lot of people do. We were both Christian at that time. Not really that culty Christian, but just more mainstream Christian. We taught for a year and then came back to Canada. And then when we were back in Canada, I think both of us as well were kind of like, growing out of our the way that we had been taught in terms of thinking about religion as like about what you believe and all this sort of stuff. We were both moving more toward the direction of, well, what really matters is what you do with your life and like being a good person and helping others and all that sort of thing. So I looked at what we did in Sri Lanka and how like we lived in a very rural community, very poor people, a lot of poverty, not a lot of education. And we were able, like by teaching those kids, like to really make a difference in those people's lives, like black and white. Like,
Mm.
and so we were looked at like, okay, for this 1 year, look at all this stuff, like impact we did. And then now we're back in Canada and like, whatever we were doing, it just didn't seem to be very meaningful. Like we weren't really helping anyone in any big way. And we really wanted to. So we're like, w- I guess you could say like we saw that like, look, we grew up in Canada. We're very privileged. We're educated. Well, we're okay financially. We don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from. How can we use that to help other people that aren't as privileged? And we just kept like thinking back to, man, when we were in Sri Lanka, we were doing all this stuff. And I guess, in a way, I think it does tie in a little bit to like that period in a person's life as a young adult where you really are like, I want to make a difference in the world. I'm going to change the world. Me. Nobody has ever thought of changing the world before. And so I had that kind of like that young fire of I'm going to go out and change the world. And so did my first wife. And so we wanted to do something good. And we saw that year that we spent in Sri Lanka as something good. And we were really making a difference. And we wanted to continue doing that. So we're like, hey, instead of getting everyday jobs back here in Canada, why don't we just go back to Sri Lanka and keep what we're doing what we were doing before? Because the school that we had worked there had closed down after we were there. And we're like, well, why don't we go back and try to start it up again, like with a new name, new funding, all that sort of stuff. And so we did. It was damn difficult, but we did it.
So why'd you stop then? Why aren't you still there right now?
Well, that's another story. So we were there about 7 years. I don't know how much you or anyone listening knows about Sri Lanka, but they had a civil war there for like decades. Horrible conflict, like ethnic-based troubles, and so forth. So when we were there, it was during that civil war. We were never like in a place of like extreme danger, but we saw some stuff. Bombs going off in cities and stuff like that. And so the year that we left kind of because we were kicked out, to put it bluntly. The government came to power and a very like right-wing government and said, we're going to end this war and we don't care how many civilians die. We're just going to like go crazy and end this war. And that was what they did and actually did end the war. Wow. And in those final stages of the war, they wanted to get rid of all Westerners because they knew that Westerners might say, these guys are committing human rights abuses and killing civilians and stuff like that. So they basically wanted to get rid of everybody. And we were kind of part of that. So we ended up having to leave because of that. And then things just went in different direction. That's when my wife and I ended up separating amicably, but we ended up going different directions. And then, our lives both took different turns. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's sorry if I got too personal there.
Oh, no, it's okay.
That's heavy stuff. I just feel like I'm an underachiever. I need to step up my game.
Dude, no.
That's the thing. Like me and who was it? The last person I talked to, I guess I might have, Nick, Science Asylum. We did this same 10 questions live stream, and he was saying something along the lines of like, I really want to make a difference, but I feel like so helpless. Maybe it was Professor Dave, and maybe they both said the same thing, but they had kind of had the similar sentiments the last two live streams. And I'm just like, guys, you're having a huge impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, it's like a ripple effect.
That's
like
right.
Us making these videos, hopefully, you just never know.
Yeah.
I actually found out something I can't share. Unfortunately, I'll be vague about it, but I found out that one of the videos I made might be having political implications in another country. And they watched literally one of my videos, and it has led to like a small movement, apparently. Like,
nice.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to see reforms in that country.
Oh, the Church of Mr. Beat.
No. I'm gonna start my own cult now. Just simple. Oh, look who's here! Holy crap.
Ready to Harvest. Shout out to Joshua.
Thank you. Yeah, subscribe to Ready to Harvest. I've seen a few of his videos, and
yeah.
Oh, Matt Bees. That's right. We both have the same last name.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that he even watched my stuff, so thank you. That's awesome. All right. Well, it's your turn.
Okay, let's go off in a different direction. I know that both you and I we could probably have the label left. We're both kind of lefty. Are you comfortable with that?
I lean left for sure.
Yeah,
well, I did a series of political tests, and that's so we confirmed it.
Okay, so I think we both lean left. The people in the comments, feel free to call us libtards or whatever the word is these days.
Neoliberal.
Yeah, exactly. So here's my question then. What does the left get wrong?
I just hate that term, the left.
Okay.
Like, what does it even mean?
Okay, then don't go get bogged down on that. Like, people use the term woke if you want. People think about, you could use Democrat, you could use the word liberal, progressive, whatever word you feel
comfortable. I can zoom in on Democratic Party. Yeah, that's easy.
I'd like to keep it more broad because
because you're Canadian.
I'm Canadian, so like people on the more, let's use the word progressive. I like the word progressive because I feel it's a little bit more broad. So on the progressive side, like obviously there's good and bad on both sides, but you and I both kind of feel more comfortable on the progressive side of the fence. Okay. So what don't you like on the progressive side of the fence? Like, what do you think maybe is something that people on the progressive side are doing wrong or saying wrong, or what could we learn from the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say the most accurate way, like obviously I made a video about this as well, like what the heck does left wing and right wing even mean? It's more accurate to have left wing and right wing in terms of spectrums on specific issues. Like, for example, guns, I actually lean probably more to the right than I do left. Compared to most people. People don't know that about me, but they like to put us in nice, neat categories because it's easier. If you have to do that, if you have to just be, two really big categories, if you want that dichotomy, then I would say it's most accurate to say you have reformers and you have reactionaries, or traditionalists might be less of a might have less of a negative connotation. So let's just say traditionalists versus reformists. So reformists generally do lean to the left, and they're the ones who want to change things. Yeah. Traditionalists, they want to keep things the same. And within that, you actually do have quite a bit of variation as far as the role of government. There are actually a lot of traditionalists who are okay with a bigger government, a government that's a little bit more authoritarian. They just don't like to admit it. And same thing with the reformers. A lot of the reformers actually want a more limited government. They are actually more civil libertarians, like left libertarians is a better way to put it. But I think generally reformers, those who want to make changes in society, their biggest failure in recent decades has been communication. They don't know how to communicate their message, whereas the traditionalists have been very successful at communicating their message. And one reason for that is because a lot of their message is simple, simplistic.
Yeah.
Like keep things the same. We don't want change. And it's much easier to convince people of keeping things the same versus, you know what, let's try something different that hasn't been tried before. Like people, when you talk about ranked choice voting, that's an issue, I think, or I like star voting even better, or universal basic income. These are issues I'm really passionate about. They're not per se left wing or right wing. They're just change.
Right.
But people automatically who I would say are often in that traditionalist category, their first impulse is to just like, cringe. They don't want to, what we have right now is fine. The Electoral College is fine. Why would you screw this up? We live in a republic. And so the messaging needs to be always about something that's universal. Like I always say, if people that lean to the left, reformers, whatever you want to call them, if they just revolved everything around freedom, they'd be much more effective with their messaging. Like if their policy, a lot of their policies that they push for will actually lead to more freedom. They just can't communicate that for some reason. Like, hey guys, universal health care, universal basic income, ranked choice voting, this all leads to more freedom.
Right.
You've got to communicate, because it really does. Like, if that's the end goal that almost everybody at least in the Western world, agrees on, we all generally want more freedom. When we want government, we just want government for protection. But other than protection from the government, we want government to step out of the way when freedom. But sometimes government protection needs to come in for freedom. And I think that message has been really poorly communicated for a really long time, to a point now where it's like, if the government tries to do anything,
yeah,
like give extra funding to repave highways, well, that's my tax dollars going to fund that. Like, that's how badly the reformists have lost the national dialogue. Well, I'm talking mostly about the United States here, but I see it a little bit in Canada too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm surprised at how everything gets labeled as socialist. Like
they don't know what it means.
Exactly, they don't even know what socialists mean, but socialist just means bad.
And just so, like woke is bad, or
but I hear what you're saying about communication. Like, I'm pretty sure in America, I think if you forced everyone to vote, probably the Democrats would win like every time. But I get the sense that on the right, they're better at getting people out. Like, they're more passionate. Whereas a lot of people who were forced to choose between Republican and Democrat, they're just more laissez-faire and like, I don't give a shit, and they're all the same. And
I would say their passion is the same
on both sides.
On both sides, but I would say the difference is where the money is.
Right. Okay.
The money is with the status quo. So whoever doesn't want to change, whoever doesn't want society to change, generally, it's in their best interest to keep it the same,
right?
Because they already have the power
and the money.
And so anytime you want these reformers come in and say, you know what, these people don't have power, I think we should give them a little bit more power, aka freedom. The status quo, they're like, no. And
does that mean that the status quo has to get really bad, like what happened during the Great Depression? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get FDR come along with a new idea, and then people are like, damn, we need a new idea because things are crappy.
Yeah, if you look at all history, I mean, I think that you only see revolution when things are desperate. And overall, I would say in most countries, things aren't quite desperate enough, especially the United States. Like, it's bad. Wealth inequality is worse now than it's ever been in American history, even worse than the Gilded Age. People don't even realize that. However, incomes are going up. It's kind of matching up with inflation. We are such a consumerist society where we're able to consume things, entertainment in particular, video games, media, streaming services, music, concerts. It's generally not too expensive to distract ourselves. Right. And so we cope with this dystopian society by feeding ourselves with distractions. And that's, if you take away the distractions, maybe you would see revolution. I mean, there's only like 430 some billionaires in the United States. Right. Who is the comedian? Tom Papa. I just watched a special by him a couple days ago. He's like, we could just like take out the billionaires if we really wanted to. He was joking, but I was just like, there's not that fear currently. These 430 some billionaires, like, that control a lot. And it's funny, a lot of people talk about one or two billionaires in particular. They talk about Elon Musk, evil Elon Musk, or they talk about George Soros,
Bezos.
Bezos. They zoom in on these, but those are the fools that have made themselves public figures. What about all the other ones that are
silent? Yeah.
We're not paying
Their heads
attention.
down.
Anyway, I could go. That's my little.
Okay, so your answer is that on the progressive side or reformer side, whatever you want to call it, there's not as good communication.
Yeah, because like they had a word woke, which was supposed to be a good thing,
Yeah.
and for many years it was like, oh, I'm woke. I know about what's like the injustice in society. And the reactionaries were so good at communication, they were able to co-opt that word and make it negative. Now it's more of a negative than a positive thing to be called woke. We don't want to be. So that is evidence to me that they have won the communication game. And it's sad for me to say, like, it's sad that we keep thinking in these terms like it's just two groups of people, because I think most people agree on most issues. I hate.
Yeah, that's true.
Good to see you, Michael. Thanks for your support. What part of U.S. that you haven't visited would you like to visit for history, interest, and education? I think this is to both of us, but I would say I haven't visited the Northeast as much as I would like. I've been to Maine and Massachusetts, but I'd like to visit like more Pennsylvania. I've never been to Pennsylvania, embarrassingly enough as that is. That's probably the biggest one. I haven't been to a lot of the Civil War sites also in the South. But have you been to, like, how many states have you been to?
25, I believe.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I went to college. My undergrad was in Texas. So I lived in Texas for 4 years.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and then just on various trips and whatnot. Like I did car road trips. So I hit I've been to all the major, like California, Florida, Northeast, Northwest, a little bit in the middle.
Kansas?
I don't think Kansas, unless we had to drive through it, because I once went from Texas up to Vancouver.
We're the drive-through state. Yeah.
We would have. I think we might have gone further west, though, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Because it would have been more scenic to go through the mountains anyway.
Colorado and that. So no, never Kansas. But I'm going to say Big Apple. I've never been to the Big Apple. I'd like to go there.
Oh, yeah. Been a couple times. It's a great place. Harrison, thanks for your support always. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, no, I mean, I oftentimes I hate to be associated with the left because I have a lot of critical things to say about the so-called left, and that's why categories in general I just think I know they're useful, yeah, especially for your charts, but I think they do more harm than good. They feed into our tribalism,
sure,
and we don't look at each other as people that are multifaceted. We look at each other just in simplistic categories. So anyway, my turn?
Sure.
Okay. Wow, these are deeper here now.
Uh-oh.
We've already been pretty deep with the conversation, but
let's go deeper.
What's the most valuable skill in your opinion?
Critical thinking just jumped to my mind right away. So I'll just run with that because I think that's a skill that we don't teach kids. I think people are trying now, but
maybe go more specific. Like, could you explain what you mean by critical thinking?
Okay. So your original question was a skill. So yeah, I guess critical thinking, I mean, we talk about critical thinking skills, plural. So maybe, yeah, I should get a bit more specific.
Sorry to
Yeah. But definitely something under critical thinking, like the ability to maybe just the ability to see one's own bias, because that's a part of critical thinking. And I think that's one that people really struggle with, because I mean, yeah, everyone has their glasses and they view everything through their glasses. And I know a lot of critical thinking classes, it's about understanding unconscious biases and how people use those biases against us and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that skill of just maybe being able to take off the glasses if you can and see things from someone else's perspective. I don't know. I just feel like that's a skill that doesn't get taught maybe as well as it could. One thing I don't like is, here, I'm going to agree with you a little bit here, make you feel good. I saw you I saw you on Twitter complaining about people who complain about teachers and public schools and all that kind of stuff. And I agree with you there because I hear people like talk about the public school system and how bad it is. And then when you get to higher ed, like, oh, universities, they're just brainwashing kids. And I actually see the opposite. Like anyone who's had a university level general education usually comes away with that. Like the whole point of a undergraduate degree is to expose a person to as many different ideas as possible and
Yeah.
to learn to think about it and to think for yourself, to see your own bias. So, Mr. Beats Guide to Critical
I
Thinking.
mean, it's one of the first
Excellent.
videos I ever made.
Awesome. And so like I
I'm
that's
orange.
awesome. That is so awesome. Actually, you know what? You don't look hardly any different. How old are you there?
Oh boy. Yeah, this would have been 9 years ago. So I was,
Yeah, you don't look any different.
well, thank you.
You just wait for the next 10 years. That's when it really starts hitting you in your 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that that skill of yeah, getting to see your own bias and that. And I think actually public schools do a pretty good job at that, and especially if you keep going all the way up, a general undergraduate education. I don't know. I've been out of the whole thing for a while, but I think most colleges do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah.
Um,
You put it really well. That's the thing. Like, you generally growing up often just get like a handful of perspectives, and like oftentimes a public school forces you to get a lot of different perspectives just by circumstance, the environment. Like you're surrounded by a lot of kids that are different than you that you normally
yeah,
wouldn't interact with. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, homeschooling. I get it. In some circumstances, it's necessary, but I just feel that the one downside of homeschooling is you're getting one person's perspective, and that's your parents.
and that's a
And,
really good at
and
exposing.
it's not like say, let's go back to I do these videos about the Bible, right? And some people think that I'm trying to push my view on them, or like I'm trying to convert them to some sort of liberal religion. And I'm not trying to convert anyone. I'm just trying to give you another viewpoint. And then you can make up your mind yourself, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I don't think anyone should ever be scared to listen to someone else's idea. If like it like even if it's something super extreme, like some terrorist training something, like as long as you're educated enough to understand some critical thinking, and I don't think you're going to get roped in that easily. If you are going to get roped in that easily, then that's a problem, and you haven't learned that skill that we talked about good enough. But
Yeah.
you shouldn't be afraid to listen to other viewpoints.
So suspending your own bias, being self-aware of your own bias, that's how you simplify what you.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
does
like it. I was actually
what do you
thinking.
mean?
I was thinking you might go in the direction of like a specific, more like
Oh, were you thinking something
doctor,
practical?
like a heart surgery or brain surgery.
Everyone
Or
should know how to take out a splinter out of the big toe.
welding. I mean, there's a thing. Yeah, I think my answer, because I was thinking about this, when I think about the world's most popular, powerful, influential, inspiring people throughout history, they were just good communicators. Like I say the same thing about politicians. Like, so I think like if you're a good communicator, then you can really do a lot. Where I mean, because look at all the bad ideas that are still out there, horrible ideas, hardly any, if probably, and some of them have no evidence to back them up at all, but they persist because there are good communicators out there. And most of those good communicators who push these bad ideas are, of course, they're getting money or some kind of reward for doing so. That's why they do it.
Right.
It's not like they believe in it. But yeah, like I even like, philosophers. Well, I mean, a lot of the modern day people we think are philosophers. Some people even say comedians are modern day philosophers. I don't think they are. I think the real philosophers don't know how to talk. Like they talk to each other, but like, because I've been up in the ivory tower. You have too, and a lot of them really struggle with getting like their message across to an audience that's not their peers.
I think one of the reasons for that is the explosion of the internet and personal computing in that. And it's even things out in the sense that we have this idea that anybody can communicate, like anybody can get a TikTok and start ranting. And it's just not true. Like, just because everyone can have a TikTok doesn't mean everyone deserves to have a TikTok or has something good to say and can say it well.
Right.
The same thing happened. I'll use the analogy with charts. When desktop publishing first came out, all of a sudden people could use PowerPoint and do all these fancy things, but that didn't mean that everyone could make a good chart.
Yeah.
Like, it's still a skill, right? So like communicating things in a good way, even though now we all have these wonderful, we have all the apps, we have all the software, we have all the websites, we can all do it, but that doesn't mean we can all do it well. And I think back to the ancient Greeks. When I was in Sri Lanka, I taught the course that I taught was called liberal studies. And it was this broad course. And I can't remember what they are now, but the liberal studies back in the Greek days, there was like 7 subjects that you had to learn. And one of them was rhetoric, which was basically the ability to communicate well. And so at our school, as part of the liberal studies program, we taught public speaking. That was kind of what we emphasized on, because it's easier than writing, for someone who doesn't speak English. So I don't think that's emphasized as much.
Yeah.
You're right. Like in schools, like how to communicate well. We just assume that, oh, you can speak English, you have a computer, anyone can do it. No, they can't. Like,
yeah.
In some ways, it's a talent. Either you got it or you don't.
Well, I notice a lot of the innovators and entrepreneurs are the few who could become billionaires. But if you look at the ones who make up the percentage of millionaires, there's never been like a study on this, so this is a hypothesis, but like a big chunk of them are just really good at communication. Yeah. Like a lot of these people that we think are, Hollywood, musicians, artists, and I have a related question to this as well, but like they just know how to, their message resonates for one reason or another, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't like even.
Sorry, this is a sub question. Of course, yeah. I guess this was your question, but let me just throw it back to you. This doesn't count as my 10. Do you think that's something that can be learned, or do you think that just is like a talent? You either have it or you don't.
Oh, well, I think it can be learned, and I say that because I think I'm getting a lot better at communication all these years. And I started out not very good. I was a very shy kid, so this is based on personal experience, but I was just a shy kid who, I had a speech impediment when I was really little, and if I can do it, I guess anybody can do it. But that's another thing too. It's like, I think a lot of people don't assume it's work, because if most youngins watching this right now, like probably have desire, at least a partial desire to become an influencer one day. Like it'd be cool to be an influencer, to have an audience on TikTok or YouTube. And when they actually do it, they realize, oh, I might have a lot of them these days do get that dopamine hit with one video that does really well, or a couple viral videos. But to do it in the long game, that's good communication. Like if you can keep doing it for years and years and years, that means people are coming back to you. Yeah. It's not a fleeting thing. And so I do think it's something anybody can do, I think. What do you think?
I think you can learn to an extent. I mean, it's just like with anything. Like I could teach myself to play the guitar, and I could probably get pretty good at it. I don't play the guitar, but I could probably teach myself and get a moderate level at it. But I'm not going to be like Jimi Hendrix or something. Like the people at the very top, I think we're just, I just got the guitar out. I mean, the people that are like just so good at it, I think that it has to be something in their genes. They just.
Yeah. And what I've always been fascinated by charisma. Like, what is charisma?
It's that thing that you can't define.
Yeah, that thing you do that I'm drawn to.
People have it or they don't. I don't know.
That's such a weird
You
thing.
could, and again, you could learn to be a little more charismatic, but
Well, yeah,
at the end of the
I'm
day,
not I appreciate you give me that advice. I'll try to be better, to be more charismatic. Oh, you were talking more generally. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Rhetorical. Okay.
But I think, yeah, you either got it or you don't. I
Yeah,
don't
that's a
know.
weird thing. Yeah.
It's very weird.
Okay, sorry, we could go on for hours if we don't.
Is it my turn or your turn now? I think it's my turn, right? To ask a question.
Yeah, it's your turn.
I'm going to totally kind of change gears here.
It's okay.
Since you're the American history geography guy, if you could combine any two states into one, while at the same time adding a new state, either by dividing a current state in two, or you can add, say, Puerto Rico or DC or something like that. So you gotta combine two and split something up so that you still have 50 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that question. That's a good one. I think the first thing that comes to mind is I want to combine the Dakotas, North Dakota and South Dakota. When I did that comparison video on the two, I was like, yeah, they have a lot in common, and yeah, culturally they do. So I think those two combined, but then you would make it so that the Republican Party had less power in the Senate and Electoral College. So therefore, I think you would have to make Greater Idaho or Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon a separate state, maybe even Eastern or Northern California. So because I always feel sorry for Eastern Oregon and Washington and Northern California because they're so dramatically different culturally than the rest of the state. There's the left coast, and then you get east of the Cascades, and it's just like, wow. So I always feel bad for them. So maybe if you have that take the place of.
So you're combining the Dakotas, and then you're splitting, maybe take a piece off Washington and Oregon, maybe even all the way down to California, and have a little, what are you going to call that? Give it a name.
Well, part of Northern California, I think they were talking about naming it Jefferson when they tried to do that back in the day. Or you could call it maybe West Idaho or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not good with names, but
yeah, I saw that the Greater Idaho movement. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of lost a little bit of steam. I made a little video about it, but I don't think it's probably going to work out, unfortunately for them, because, it's silly to just assume that Washington and Oregon are just going to willingly give it up. Yeah. We'll give it up so easily.
So if you combine the Dakotas, how big would that be land mass? Would that be one of the bigger then? It wouldn't be as big as Texas, but
yeah, it would probably be, I would say, right behind it might be even bigger than Colorado. No, or maybe right behind Colorado. So it'd be top 7.
You have to do the math on that. Someone do the math on it.
Yeah. Come on, dorks. That's a compliment, by the way. I say dork. It's always a compliment.
So you didn't go for the add DC or Puerto Rico?
Oh, the problem with that, I don't think enough people are going to go for it because DC is clearly very Democratic leaning. Puerto Rico is more of a wild card, but I think at the end of the day, Puerto Rico would lean a little bit more to the Democratic Party, even though it's pretty 50-50. And plus, there's the whole, I hate to say it, but xenophobic element of it because they're all Spanish speaking.
Yeah, but you see, you went for you have to keep it nice and even. I give you the power of God here. You could just
Oh, I thought I had to keep it even. Okay.
No, nothing about Republican. No, you had to keep it 50 states, but you didn't have to think about pleasing Republicans and Democrats. You could have just.
Oh, well, if that's the case, if I don't have to please anybody, then yeah, make DC a state, Puerto Rico a state, Guam a state, all of it, all the territories if they want it. Some of the territories don't want it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I just don't know. Could America live with an odd number of states, 53 states? It would just seem so weird.
They did for short periods of time, but yeah, typically when states were added, it was 2 at a time. Especially in the antebellum years after the Missouri Compromise, all the way up to
we all started with 13, which was an unlucky number. So I guess anything's better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Articles of Confederation, the first constitution of the country, said that 9 of the 13 had to agree on something to get passed, and that's why hardly anything got passed.
Okay, someone says United Dakota would be around the size of Montana, slightly
Oh,
bigger.
wow. Oh, that's my friend Chris. Good to see you here, Chris. That's amazing. You're amazing for coming up with that. So it'd be the third biggest state in the contiguous, well, fourth overall, because
Sounds
Alaska,
bigger than Colorado then.
California, Texas, and then yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Cool.
They might like that actually. All right. My next question for you is, I guess I'll go back to the charts. I have another charts. Last charts question.
Okay.
For your history charts, so not your family trees or anything else, evolution, anything like that, but for your history charts, and this came to mind when I was like looking at your American history chart, trying to see if I could suggest some updates. How do you determine what gets on there? Like what gets left? Because you only have so much space. So what's
I asked Mr. Beat.
Okay, well, I mean, like say it's a different, like your world history chart.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's where there is bias, and there is a lot of people think making a chart is a technical thing, and it can be, but I see it also kind of as an art. So being that it's also an art, there's room for the artist having an impact. Like it's not going to be perfect. Like I try to make my charts as fair and unbiased as possible, but nowhere do I ever claim that it is 100% unbiased and perfect, because I don't think you could do that even if I consulted, thousands and thousands of people. So first of all, I want to say I don't worry too much about it. But that being said, I like to do what I did with you. And that is, I find someone who's an expert or knows a lot in one area. And I say, hey, if you had to say one thing about this century, what would it be? And I guess then a lot of times I'm relying just on my own kind of general knowledge. I feel I have a fairly good kind of baseline general knowledge. So I kind of represent the average understanding of something. So if I haven't heard of it, then probably most people don't either. But then obviously I know I'm very valuable, and there's going to be these blinders and stuff. So I just try to collaborate with other people, especially because obviously I'm white, I'm male.
You are?
Straight, cisgender. Like I tick all the boxes of the high privileged non-minority. I converted to Judaism, so I that doesn't really count. So it's like I have to rely on others in terms of like, did I treat this fairly? So I try to listen and get input. Like for example, the Christian denominations tree I'm building, it's been a lot of fun because basically I'm letting people comment, and I've made a lot of changes based on recommendations. Now, if one person says, "Oh, you should do this," I'm not going to automatically do it because that person could be hugely biased. But if like I get 20 comments all saying, "Oh my God, you need to add this because this is so important," I'm going to be like, well, if 20 people out of so many thousand said that, then I must have really missed something there. So it's kind of just getting the temperature of the room, I guess, and collaborating with others. Oh, and the other thing I do whenever I make a chart is like I look at a bunch of other people who have tried the same project. So making a US history chart, I find 10 other US history charts that are already made. And I look at like, okay, well, what did they think was important? And what are the commonalities? Like if all 10 charts all kind of like show one thing, I'm like, okay, well, then that's obviously important.
Mhm.
And then if I notice one chart did something unique, I'm going to be like, I wonder why, and I'll look into that. You know,
Mhm.
so I guess it's kind of like what's the word for like a conglomerate? You're like going out there and checking a bunch of sources, and then um, I used to on my website. I used to make a lot of top 10 lists. So I do. This was when I was trying to use SEO to like get hits to my website. So I do stuff like 10 most famous paintings ever painted. And what I do is I Google 10 famous paintings, and then I'd read everybody's top 10 list and then combine it. And then when you combined it, you'd maybe get like 30. But then it's like, well, everybody mentioned that one. So obviously that one's gotta be on there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like, only one guy mentioned this. So well, if all the others didn't mention that, then that can't be that famous. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like I guess encyclopedias and these kind of general knowledge kind of things do that sort of thing. And that's why I always point out to people, don't take my chart as like the final word on something. This is like a Cole's note. Is it Cole's note or Cliff's note that you have in the States? Or I guess the
Cliff note.
Cliff note and the Spark
Yeah.
note. Like those things are just cheat sheets. They're just like a lay of the land. They're just give you the general structure. They're not like the be all and end all. And that's like my chart. Like, don't just take that chart as like this is everything you need to know about world history. I'm just giving you the lay of the land, and then you can, go from there. So
Reference. Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
we can't be too scared to like try to make it perfect, because it's never going to be perfect.
And it's not like you're trying to be like a trendsetter with the information. Like everybody should know about this, but you're just like you're uh, you're recording what's already out there. You're organizing mainstream.
The most difficult stuff is always the most recent stuff, because over
Yeah.
time, it's like literature, right? Everybody's writing books all the time, but over time, certain stuff rises to the top of, it's been 300 years and this book is still being read. Now we call that great literature because it's part of the canon, and everyone needs to know about it. So for something, say 500 years ago, you can say who the important philosophers were. Why? Because we're still talking about them and whatever. Whereas like if you say, what's the most important thing that happened in the last 5 years? Well, obviously COVID, but that's that's a bit of an outlier.
That one.
That's a bit of an outlier, because you don't know 100 years from now what someone's going to say was really important, in this decade. So you kind of have to wait. So the hardest part is always that, like, I think more recent stuff.
Because we don't see the impact of it yet.
But now that I say all that, I want to add the caveat of sometimes we do have to change our biases even in the past, because a lot of history has been written by white men, at least in the West. So a lot of the famous artists, writers, and whatnot, you're going to get a lot of white old dudes. So sometimes there is a time to say, maybe we should ask some other people what they think should be on there. Some famous women that weren't remembered. Maybe we should think more about their impact, or famous people of color, and so forth. So you can't just rely on what's been on the top 10 lists before. Sometimes there's some room to tweak it.
The sad thing is that it's hard sometimes not to make it feel token, because if you go back and look at the historiography of it, there wasn't a lot of historians that even covered them back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you ask like, the 100 most famous people in world history, you're going to get mostly men, because we don't even know the women who did great things, because nobody wrote it down. And I feel bad for that, because there might be some person that like really changed the world and we don't even know her name.
I mean, who changes the world more than anyone? We already know it's generally mothers, moms, those, especially the first few years of life, so much research has shown that like who we are was determined by how we were taken care of by our moms those first few years. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Although I think feminists would call you out on that, because it's a little bit of a trope that when people talk about women, they're like, people say, well, moms are so great, and it kind of limits female or women's roles.
Oh,
childbearing.
yeah.
So I think a lot of women would call you out on that and say, don't just automatically bring up birthing children, because women can do a lot more than just birthing children.
Well, I think that women should be in the home. That's their true role. They need to make me a sandwich. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'll let your wife deal with that one.
By the way, when my daughters were born, they went straight to my chest, skin to skin contact. And
yeah,
I was heavily involved with my
cool
daughters in the early years. If I could breastfeed, I would have.
Is it my turn to ask a question? Because I can kind of keep the conversation.
It's getting too awkward here. Yes, please go on.
No, I'm going to keep going with
talking about myself breastfeeding, and you're probably, let's move on.
This is probably the most serious question I'm going to ask. Okay. We both have 2 kids, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have 2 girls. I have 2 boys. Okay. And we're both dudes, obviously. So as a dad of 2 girls, I want to ask you this question. What can boys and men do to make the world a safer place for women and girls?
Let them be in charge. That's the first thing that pops in my head. I just really think we're overdue to just kind of hand over the keys and say, I don't understand it. Like we've seen evidence of this already. And maybe I'm sexist against men. I hate to say that about myself, but we've seen so many recent examples of female leadership being more effective for society, better for society, in my opinion. This is my opinion. And we don't see women. I know this sounds bad. No offense, men. I'm a man, so I'm not offended myself, but I can see how some would be. Women don't start wars generally. They're not the ones starting wars. I just feel like they would do a better job than all these. Now, that all said, what's happening? We're already seeing a reactionary movement with young men.
Of course.
Men's and that's because women are men are falling behind. More and more girls are going to college now and in leadership positions. They're becoming CEOs of companies, which has historically not happened. And because of this, we're already seeing a reactionary movement, which is why you get doofuses like Andrew Tate and all these others that they're like, they want to be traditionalist, how it was, and it's better that way, blah, blah, blah. But guys, I think it's your ego that's really needs to be deflated here, because who cares? Like anything, I kind of wish that I had less responsibilities. And just because you don't have the same responsibilities doesn't mean you don't have responsibilities. So I think we need to change the culture of to me, I think it's manly that I have had a pretty big role raising my daughters. I think it's the most manly thing you can do is be a good father. And so I have been there. Today I took a chunk of my day and I was at my daughter's school helping out with her field day activities. And I am on the parent teacher conference, or I'm a parent teacher organization, PTO. I am there.
Cool.
My wife worked summers and I was home summers. I was doing it all. I think men need to, especially in the role of fathers, embrace it, because that's how I think that's the most important job.
Mm-hmm.
Being a parent. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I want to say something, but I want to say 2 things. First of all, I agree with you in terms of putting women in charge, because a day doesn't go by where it's some politician or some famous person is something comes out of sexual harassment or rape or abuse in the past, and it's this guy's terrible now. Even some musician or someone we all loved, and oh my God, they're horrible, because we learned this thing that they did. And I think, and especially with politicians, it's and I'm you know what? There's a really easy answer to this, and put women in charge, because they're way less likely to have some horrible thing that they did in the past.
But also, it wouldn't get covered up. Yeah.
So, but after saying that, I want to say, because you answered the question, what we could do to make the world better, but I actually asked, what could we do to make the world safer? And so I was kind of adding more like,
Oh, be more specific.
yeah, the recognition that like women and girls, like it's a different world out there for them, you know, in terms of sexual harassment and dangers and stuff. And we guys, like we can float around the world and not have to worry about the kind of things
Yeah.
that they worry about. But I'm thinking you're a parent of two girls. Like I'm a parent of two boys. What would you tell to my two boys to say, look, you guys are living in the world with my two girls. This is what I want you to know so that, you know, I can feel more comfortable as a dad of two girls, you know, in this world.
Yeah. I think that awareness thing that you talked about earlier, that skill, developing that, like saying, hey, men, we have the testosterone and we're bigger and we get the privilege of walking in a dark parking lot at night, not worrying about being attacked. So like to make our daughters feel safer, I think men need to respect them. And how do they respect them? I think they listen to them and they let them do what they want to do. They give them freedom, and freedom isn't being in a traditional role. That's not freedom. I mean, it could be for some, but freedom means different things to different people. So I think, I don't know, there's no easy answer to that. I think I am hopefully raising my daughters to be strong in terms, I mean, physically, obviously there are limits. I mean, they could be bodybuilders if they want, or pro wrestlers, whatever. But, you know, odds are they're probably not going to do that. So that means they have to be, in order to feel safe, I think that it's going to come down to the men kind of making a cultural adjustment, saying we need to respect women. I don't feel like I can answer that question though without just sounding like a, you know, like,
I don't know. I think you answer it well just with the listening. I think that's, I mean, if you want to say one thing, you said listen. And like, you know, there's this term mansplaining. Maybe there needs to be man listening. I don't know.
There you go.
If men just listen more, maybe that will go a long way.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
I like that. I like man listening. I like that. Oh, you got somebody from Sri Lanka here originally.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, what's your opinion on the current state of Sri Lanka? I'm not informed enough to have probably a good answer to that question, but
I'm somewhat informed, not as informed as I used to be. I don't think the state in Sri Lanka right now is very good. Basically, you had since I left, you had a cult of personality. Basically, there was one politician, Rajapaksa, who rose up and he was the strong man who was like, I'm going to end the war. And his own brother was like the minister of defense and all that. And, you know, they were heavy handed, and a cult of personality developed around them, you know, the type of leader where you have statues or pictures of the guy everywhere and everyone just thinks he's great. Kind of like a certain guy named Donald in your own country. Sorry, that was a joke, by the way. Never heard of Donald?
Sorry, I was just reading the comments.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I just made a comment that the whole Donald Trump thing is, I think, the closest thing the states have had to that kind of cult of personality, right?
Oh, okay.
One guy that's just like can do no wrong. Yeah, can do no wrong. So Sri Lanka had that type of guy who was just like, people worshipped him unquestionably. They thought he was the savior, going to do everything. And he was in charge for a long, long time. And then just like through COVID, I think people got fed up because there was so much corruption, and, you know, they were taking all the same old story happens all over the world. The politician taking all the money, keeping it to themselves. Meanwhile, the people, you know, can't get rice, can't get gas for the cars, and so forth. And Sri Lanka, unfortunately, was left in that situation where, it didn't work out. Sri Lanka needs like true democracy where like the leaders aren't just in it to like get rich for themselves, but to really help people. And unfortunately, they've got a way to go. I mean, one of the things we tried to do in the school by promoting critical thinking and all that good stuff and ethnic cooperation was to like instill that kind of idea. But that's just, you know, one school in one area. There needs to be a lot more of that, so that I'd be happy just to see that place be a little more democratic in like a genuine, we complain about things here in the West, but like they literally still kill journalists on the regular for like blowing the lid off something. They'll just bump people off. Oops, he died in a motorcycle accident.
They do the same thing in Russia.
Yeah, exactly. So
greed is quite the drug, I swear. Yeah. It's if we can figure out the greed problem. All right, my turn. What drives and motivates us, all of us human beings? And I mentioned greed just now, so this is a good segue. Other than money, what motivates us? What motivates us and drives us, other than money?
Us in general? Like,
yeah.
I guess different things motivate different people, though.
Before you answer this, though, like, okay, I think about myself, like, I've reached a point in my life now where it's not like a scarcity mindset where I'm like, okay, I can pay the bills. I don't have to worry about money as much now. I can, but I still get up early every morning and I still like, I got to do this. I got to do that. I want to make this. So I have all these things I want to do and I stay busy. I don't have to, but I'm still doing it. So why do I do that? What causes us to do that, do you think?
Someone just wrote in the comments, fear. I'd say at the very like psychological, fundamental level, I would say safety. Like we want our basic needs met. We want to eat and live with something over our heads and all that sort of stuff. And so most everything that we do, like if it is money, or some people want power, or some people want influence, at the end of the day, they want all those things so that for themselves, they will have safety, they will have all their needs met. And you're right in that it really, for 99% of the people on earth, like so many people, especially outside of Western countries, they're lacking basic stuff. And until you get to the point where you have basic stuff and then even a little bit more so that you feel comfortable. See, the reason why you probably don't feel comfortable yet, you might be like doing fine, but you don't have enough in the bank so that, if shit hits the fan, sorry, you still have some concerns there. Whereas some people, when they get to the point where all their needs are met, then finally they can relax a little bit. But then you get megalomaniacs who then just want more and more power and more money. I don't know about that. I think they're outliers. I think at the end of the day, most of us just want safety. We want to be comfortable. We want to know that our needs are going to be met. We're going to have food for ourselves, for our family, for our children, for our loved ones, for our community. And money makes us feel safer. And power sometimes make people feel safer, or education makes people feel safer. So like whatever it is that individually motivates person, I think at the end of the day, from a psychological point of view, is they're trying to feel safe and comfortable. And because we're programmed either by evolution or whatever else to like want to protect ourselves and want to keep living. So
survive, reproduce. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that immortality might be one of those things that is, we know we can't live forever, but we're still like, say, because I don't know about the megalomaniac thing being an outlier for millionaires and richer, like still working 60, 70 hours.
It blows my mind, like when people are billionaires, but they still want more money. It's like, what are you going to do with it?
Well, but I think it's really influence and power, but also subtext to that is immortality. They want their legacy to go on for as long as possible, because at some point all of our legacies end,
right?
Which is a really trippy thing to really think about, because sooner or later the earth is going to burn up. We're not going to be here. Maybe we'll be on a spaceship somewhere on another planet, but I think maybe I'm thinking about what when I get up every day and I got to make this video, I got to look this up, got to do this. Maybe really what I'm driven by is immortality, which is again an ego thing. It's still, I need to work.
Deep down, if you don't put out another video and you don't do your job, or if you didn't go to work when you were a teacher, that eventually your money would run out. You wouldn't pay your mortgage or your rent, and someone would kick you out of your house. And pretty soon you'll be on the streets, and like, although that's kind of unlikely because at least in the West we have social safety nets and family and all that sort of stuff. If you're lucky, there's always that fear that we're gonna screw up.
Yeah. No, that's
out in the cold.
Surprising answer. I like it. You've been surprising me today. Okay, it's your turn. I think is that my 7th question? It is.
I have 4 left. So, since we were talking about megalomaniacs, I'm going to go with this one. It's Trump related. How will people view Trump after he dies, especially his supporters? Like 10 years from now, let's say he's long. Well, he's not long. Okay, 10 years from now, the guy's dead. How will he be remembered, especially among those who really, really support him? Will he be forgotten, or will he become Jesus-like, or what?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I do think he's a demagogue, and that is fairly unique in American history. Most presidents were not demagogues. The closest we got to that was Andrew Jackson, a little bit with John F. Kennedy, but not even that much because he wasn't around long enough. So I think I would say for many years to come, we're going to see that, for lack of a better word, cult-like attraction to him, even after he does die. However, I do think those numbers will decrease throughout the years. And once we kind of sober up, because, a lot of people they're good people, but they're blinded by their love for him. He can do no wrong. It's amazing that, like, he's been accused of so many crimes, and in some cases he's guilty. It doesn't have to be in a court of law, but we know he's done bad things. But people don't care. So like, maybe if it was anyone else, you or I, anyone else, they would be marginalized. They would be tarred and feathered. I mean,
so give me 10 years out, 25 years out, 50 years out, 100 years out.
I say 25 years. Even as soon as then, he's not going to be seen nearly as highly. But I mean, already his base is only probably about a third of the population, even if that. And then a lot of those people are going to pass it down to the next generation. But I think he's going to go down as one of the worst presidents in American history. 25 years already. He's already considered one of the worst presidents we've ever had. 50 years, I think his legacy will only get worse. The only positive thing that I think can come out of what his presidency and his legacy, I think, is he was able to tap into populism that I think is a net positive for our country. There's a lot of people that now identify as Republican who truly, a lot of their concerns they're about changing the status quo. They might be misguided, but I think their heart's kind of in the right place. And yeah, there's xenophobia, a little bit of racism, but overall, I think these people are good people. And I think
a little bit
populism that he's tapped into, I think it's created this, I think, a powerful force that's not going to go away anytime soon. In fact, there's overlap with people on the left and the right that in terms of populism, modern populism, that I think is good. I'm attracted. I mean, people talk trash about populism, and I get there are negative aspects of it, but I think generally we are overdue for some kind of movement where we have a broader coalition of people that rise against.
Well, strangely, it almost seemed that at the same time there, at least for a while, there was a similar thing on the left with Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
Was kind of populist. Didn't go as far, but like some people were rallying around him in kind of a similar way. So
because the Democratic Party shut him down. That's why. If the Democratic Party would have just done what the Republican Party did, he would have easily won the election. In fact, there's evidence to show that there's I think at least 1.5 million. I might be wrong on the figures. 1.5 million people that voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary voted for Donald Trump in the general.
Yeah,
so
it's really weird.
Aren't ideologically pure as like that's kind of a myth. Like a lot of people are kind of just driven more by rhetoric. Back to what we were talking about earlier. Who's saying the best? Because Trump, a lot of what he said, especially in 2016, was pretty appealing. Like to drain the swamp. holy crap! When I heard him say that, I was like, oh, he's going to get some votes when he's talking
Yeah,
about.
he certainly was good at rhetoric.
Yeah, when he
And
got
he has
in there,
charisma, whether you like it or not. He has a certain level of charisma.
His rhetoric was so good that there's still people to this day. Like, okay, there's two big things that he said that people loved when he was on the campaign trail in 2016. He said, I'm going to drain the swamp, get rid of the special interests. I'm also going to end the wars. His rhetoric was so good that people believe he actually did those two things. And he did not. He kept the wars going. He did not drain the swamp. But because his rhetoric was so good, because that cult is so strong, people think he actually did it. It blows my mind. It's like, did you know that he actually escalated drone warfare? Yeah. People don't like
I think the way he like has nicknames for everyone was a really good tactic too.
Oh, master of marketing.
Yeah, he's a good marketer. That's
yeah, that's his genius, his marketing.
Yeah.
All righty. We're up to number 8 already. I think it's been 2 hours, so I'm going to try to move it a little bit along more. This has been a lot of fun, by the way. My next question is, this is kind of related to what we've been talking about. If all of us could live, like say the average lifespan was 1,000 years, if we could all on average live to 1,000 years, how would that change society? You could take that whatever direction you want to go. Psychologically.
If we could all live for 1,000 years.
Yeah, if that was the average lifespan, how would society change?
I think it would be good. I think the overall net would be good, positive, because the older we get, generally speaking, the smarter we get. And I don't mean just smarter as in book smarts, but like wiser. Like we get more balanced, more nuanced. And I'm noticing that as I age. I don't want to say I'm moving toward the center because I'm not, but I don't know. I find myself being able to like see both sides of an issue a little bit more. And like when you're younger, you're just full of fire and you're like, we're right and everyone else is wrong. We're going to change the world. And those guys are bad. We're good. And, you know, you have all that and that's great. And I don't discourage that in anyone because that gets stuff done. But, you know, it's such a cliche, but now that I'm older, I wish people respected older people more. You know, it's too late for me to say that because now I'm the old guy saying, oh, those young people don't listen to us.
Lame.
But now I look back and I'm like, man, when I was young, I wish I would have talked to more old people because they really do know more. Like they've had more life experience, not across the board. There's some nasty old people or some very ignorant old people. But generally speaking, come on, the more days you have on this planet, the more you're going to learn stuff. You're going to come into contact with more people. You're going to have more life experience. You're going to have some wisdom there, right? So I think if we all get to live to 1,000 and like human psychology is the same. So it's not like we live to 1,000 and like the first 200 years of that, we're still children. No, I'm assuming you're saying like we still become an adult at 20 and then we live to 1,000, right?
Yeah. I mean, also the assumption is we're not going to go senile still when we're in
exactly. Like we're going to be in good health, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe we're going to, in a health situation, we're going to reach like 50 or 60 and then like have that kind of middle age, then just kind of like extend out without dying and starting getting wrinkly and arthritis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then I think then that gives you 950 more years to then live in your prime wise part of life. So I think that's going to be a net good because then I guess the average population is going to be older and smarter. And so therefore, you're just going to have a lot more older, smarter people.
I mean, I do think it would be a positive too, because you have the exponential effect of like kind of compounding on itself with like all the good stuff, like compounding on itself. But one negative thing that pops in my head is like, birth rates might go down because there's like less motivations to reproduce. And so we'd have to figure that out. You got to still have babies.
I assume you're saying that menopause will still be where it is today. So then, like we won't be able to have babies at age 600.
I mean, even if the lifespan goes up to, I mean, it's the average lifespan worldwide, I think, is somewhere like 72 or 73. Even if that goes up to 100, that could have a huge impact worldwide. I mean, obviously, it's getting close to that in some parts of the world right now already. Like, there's some zip codes where the average lifespan is like 95 years old. Did you know that? As some zip codes in the United States.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to hear, like, I know of some people in their 90s, or people who have relatives in their 90s. It seems much more common than it used to be. But I was thinking about, like, in terms of the presidency, a lot has been said about Biden and how he's so old, right?
Yeah.
And, but if we had a president that old and we knew that he was going to be in good health, both mentally and physically, that'd be great. Sure, the older the better. The only problem with Biden right now is once you start hitting 80, your mental health, your physical health starts going down, whether you're great or not, and that becomes a liability at some point. So, I mean, we have an age cutoff, like, at the beginning. I think it's 30, right? You have to be 30 to president.
35.
So, I mean, the way things are, they really ought to have one on the other end. But if everyone lived to 1,000, you wouldn't need it on the other end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
better.
I think with Biden too, I think a lot of times he was never really that good of a speaker. Rhetorically, he's pretty weak, and he's just kind of sounds like he's bumbling. And so I think optically it doesn't even, he fell off his bike. People are like, oh no, he's too old. Like, he can't go up the stairs very well. So yeah, that doesn't. I mean, that's why people, I think,
I've been falling off my bike for years now.
Yeah. Well, if it was like, some people do age amazing. Like, there's a story I saw on 2020 or one of those news shows. They were following around all these people who were older than 100. They were all they just did regular stuff. Like, one guy was still working. I don't remember what he did, but then another guy, still drove to the grocery store, picked up groceries. Like, there's no thing. He's like over 100 years old and he's still doing it.
I think those people are outliers in our current, situation. But
all right,
I've got fairly easy question. It's my turn, right?
Yes.
I'm down to some pretty easy ones. Who is someone that ran for president within the last 50 years but lost that you think would have made a great president?
Oh yeah, that's easy. Well, my number one go-to is John Anderson, and the election in 1980. That was a three-way race primarily between Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter was running for re-election, and John Anderson, who was a Republican, but a more moderate Republican, and definitely had stuff in common with Carter, but also stuff in common with Reagan. He warned about Reagan's extreme supply side economics, more popularly known today as Reaganomics, named after him. He said that also he warned against extreme deregulation. But the biggest appeal for me with him is, like, he was a realist and pragmatic, that he was like, hey, we can't be slashing taxes dramatically. We have bills to pay and we have obligations. We have safety nets. And I just think that we would have still had the same prosperity in the 1980s, but it would have been more widespread over, like, because wealth inequality really began in the 80s. If you look at all the data, and wealth inequality is normal, it's perfectly expected in a capitalist society. But when I'm talking about the negative aspects of it, I'm talking about when it gets out of control, when it's extreme. And I think Anderson really would have played a big role preventing that. Now, there was a pretty big movement behind Reagan, so I don't know how long he would have lasted, but.
Sorry, what's his name?
John Anderson. Very boring name. John B. Anderson.
Okay, I'm seeing what he looks like.
Pretty. Kind of had glasses like what we're wearing right now.
Well, actually, the first thing that comes up is John Anderson, a country singer, but that's not his name.
He died a few years ago. Okay. Also founded the. There was an organization I want to give a shout out to, always, called Fair Vote. That's heard of them. They're all about instant or ranked choice voting, but they call it instant runoff voting. It's the same thing basically.
Cool.
He helped start that organization, and they're still active today.
Cool.
Yeah. Mr. Anderson from The Matrix? No, not him. He took the red pill, though.
Okay, that was easy.
Yeah. What about you? Who do you think would have made it? Well, who's your favorite? Let's just keep it Canadian.
Oh,
I don't even know anything about like who's your favorite prime minister in Canadian history.
See, we Canadians, we don't think
do that.
Yeah, we don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to pick, I'd say Jean Chrétien, because he was the president or the prime minister like when I was in high school and college and stuff, right? So he's just iconic to me. And that was when like Quebec was trying to separate, and he tried to keep the country together and stuff. But really, like, I don't know, as Canadians, like I probably could not name all our prime ministers. I think I could do half. Like, they're not as iconic to us. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, to be fair, most Americans can't name half of the presidents either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, someone asked a question here.
Oh, crap. I missed it. Yeah. Another Sri Lanka.
I was wondering the same answer, because I wondered if you had any knowledge on the judicial reform controversy, especially as a diaspora Jew. Well, I mean, technically, I wouldn't even call myself a diaspora Jew because I'm a convert, so I'm not ethnically Jewish. So I don't have that, like, I don't feel I have the right to kind of have that same kind of opinion on certain things as like someone who was born a Jew. But generally speaking, I think what's going on in the country right now in Israel is horrible. Like, huge surge on the right side, and moving away from democracy to craziness. I think it's awful. I've said before on my own channel, I mean, I'm kind of a two-state solution kind of guy. Like, I don't like what the state of Israel is doing to Palestinians. On the other hand, I think Israel has a right to exist. It's a bit too late now to like build the country somewhere else. I mean, if we could turn back the clock and do things differently, sure, but we can't do that, right? So Israel is where it is, and I think they have the right to live there and be peaceful, but so do the Palestinians. And I don't see any way forward, really, because of human nature. Then, I mean, they should have, way back in 1967, like, they should have made the line and said, okay, Palestine over here, Israel here. And I think that would have been better. So I'm kind of sad that that didn't happen, and it's not too late. I don't know. I'm not up on it as much as some people. Like, some people will argue, and maybe they have really good arguments why a two-state solution wouldn't work. I don't know. I'm willing to listen to that, but any situation where either side is not treated well, I'm not gonna like. So you gotta have some situation where both sides win. So for me, I can just see two-state solution being the only way to go.
Yeah, I think if you have a one-state solution, there would have to be strong safeguards and guarantees for the Palestinians, because like, I just don't see it going so well.
Well, yeah, because like, look what's going on right now.
Yeah, the Palestinian.
Well, it only takes one government to come in that's
a
little bit radical, and all of a sudden those disappear. So,
well, from even before then, there's so many Palestinians in Israel now that are mistreated, and they're kicked out of their homes. And I mean, people focus a lot on the West Bank, and that obviously or the Gaza Strip especially. I'm sorry, Gaza Strip is where they focus the most, because it's like open air prison in many ways. I get it. But also the Palestinians in Israel and the West Bank, there's a lot of bad stuff going on there too. But the other thing is too, like, there's a lot of people in Israel that Israelis that stand up for Palestinians. That it seems like they don't get heard enough. You know, there's a lot of protests against this very traditionalist.
Yeah, totally.
I only know any of this stuff because of my video I did recently. Otherwise, I'd be fairly ignorant.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, now that I'm Jewish, I converted to Judaism. Like, it's annoying that, like, I did a video a couple weeks ago about the Holocaust and relatives of my wife that died, right? Um, and as soon as you mention Jews, people are going to be like, well, what about Palestine? They're being so mean to Palestine. Okay, I agree with you. Like, just because I'm Jewish doesn't mean like I'm anti-Palestine and pro-Israel. On the other side, I do get the arguments that are made that like people like to talk about what Israel's doing to Palestine more than they do what other people are doing in other countries that are not good. Like, so there's sometimes a little unfairness there. But it's a complicated situation. There's no right or wrong or I guess if I want to say one thing about that, for people listening in, don't assume that all Jews, being a Jew and being an Israeli are two different things. It just so happens that there's only really one big Jewish country in the world. But like, if you met someone who's Hindu in America, you wouldn't expect them to like support whatever the current Indian government is doing over in India. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're two different things, right? But I think politics, especially politicians in America, like to put them together. And that confuses people. Like, people think of American Jews as being Israelis living in America. They don't have anything to do with Israel. They came to America long before Israel even existed. Like, so anyway.
All right. I think is it your turn? I think so. Maybe not. No, my turn. You have two more, right?
What? Yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay. Then it's my turn. This is a complete different direction. That's okay. What makes good art? Like, what makes? Yeah, I'll keep it.
Like, are we talking about any kind of art, visual, music?
Yes.
I think it has to really have the artist in it. Like, it has to have it. Like, you can't just make art in a technical way. Like, you can't just like write a poem by following the rules of how to make a good poem. Like, it has to come from somewhere deep within, like whether it's music or whatever, it's like you're sharing yourself. And so the best, say it's a painting, you're going to see like that, whoever painted that, you're seeing themselves on the canvas, even if it's not a self-portrait. Or a music, it's like you're seeing that person's soul, you're seeing their heart. Like, it has to have some sort of, like, I guess that you could call it intuition or soul or heart. I don't know. This is where language breaks down, right? Like, we don't have the words for it.
Yeah.
But it has to have that. Like, it can't be technical. It can't be surface. It can't be like,
formulaic.
Yeah. Like,
I feel like a lot of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off there. I was just going to say, I feel like a lot of art is trying to emulate or copy other art. And so I wonder, like,
not gonna work.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, you say it comes from deep within, but some argue we are entirely products of our environment.
No, sorry. Yeah, I should add, like, if it's an artist who's, influenced by someone, but then they don't put their own personal spin on it, that's fine. But you got to put something of yourself into it. Obviously, as humans, like, nobody's 100% creative, like, make up a song that has zero influence. Like, we're all building on, human history and but you got to put your own spin on it. And I actually see the Bible in that way, because the Bible, at the end of the day, it copied from all the cultures around it. Like, most of the Bible, you get those same stories in Mesopotamia and Egypt. They just stole those stories. However, they didn't just steal them. They put a spin on it, a very unique ancient Israelite spin. And that's what made them good. So, yeah, I'm not a musician at all, but if I was a musician, I could be impacted by other musicians. But if I just copied them, like, there's a difference from someone who copies something and someone who puts their own personal spin on it. And then you can feel like, wow, I'm getting a bit of that guy's soul or that woman's soul. Like, I think that makes good art.
Yeah. it's hard not to sound pretentious when answering that question. So, but like, oh, you just don't know good art, man. Yeah, you actually had a very humble answer.
Well, actually, here's a good example. We have a subreddit, Useful Chart subreddit, where it's mostly people who try to copy the Useful Chart style and make their own charts. And the ones that I love the best are, there's some who like just copy exactly the way I do it, and that's great, and they're great at that. And there's some people though who put their own personal spin on it, like their own style. They've developed their own graphic art style or whatever, and it's unique to them. And I can see it and I say, oh, I know who made that one. And I think that's the best, because it's like they were inspired by something, but then they put their own spin on it.
Yeah. And also, yeah, I think purpose is really important, because if you're just creating something, like, for example, with a political agenda, like you're just trying to preach a message, or even like a religious agenda, whatever agenda, I feel like it's hard to be like, you're kind of taking away what art is supposed to be, because it's not, like you said, it's not coming from within, deep within, it's coming from over here. And you're trying to bring it over here when it just feels, I think that's why a lot of times the good art, I know it's all subjective, but what a lot of people are drawn to is stuff that like they feel like they can connect to it, but at the same time it's novel, it's different, and so it's exciting. So it's like that combination of like, I don't know why I like it. It's terrifying, but at the same time, I can't stop going to it, you know?
Same thing happens on YouTube. Like, you get a channel that hits it big, like Extra History or Oversimplified, and then you get people who try to copy that exact style. And it's like, okay, but we already have them. Like, do something new, like maybe similar, but put your own spin on it. Like, if you don't, then I'm not interested. Like, there's a lot of copycat kind of channels. But yeah. I like when like someone's inspired, they're doing something similar, but then they put their own spin, either by focusing on a different area or we're doing it in a slightly. You got to do something new. That's like good art. Yeah, there has to be something new to it.
And sometimes the audience isn't there; they're not ready for it. Maybe they will be someday, like we saw, like
with your other channels, Zany Boys or whatever.
Yeah, maybe someday
people aren't ready for
it. Funny, yeah.
People just aren't ready for it, man.
Actually, it's weird. My Zany time.
That's it. Zany time. Look it up.
Yeah. Well, those videos are. Why not promote it? Let's do it. Those videos are actually I never really like our sense of humor. My brother and I, we make the videos primarily. It's a very specific type of sense of humor, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like there's a certain type of person that is that is drawn like
I don't sound like a Luddite here, but these dishwashing machines.
There's I think there's overlap if you're familiar with surrealism. It's a type of comedy that it's mostly associated with Tim and Eric and Eric Andre. Yeah. That type of like where it's just, it seems random to most people, and it is random, but like because of that, it's not very universal. Yeah. See how weird we are?
Yeah, it's
just like my daughters and my wife, they will watch an entire video. We have a 5-minute long comedy video here, and they'll barely even smile. But then I show the same video to my sister. Shout out to my sister Renee. She cracks up, and so like it's so weird. Senses of humor are so weird. But I say that about all arts because again, it's subjective, and it's unfortunate that more people don't find this funny and maybe objective.
That's a good point. I think if it's a piece of art, no matter what it is, if there's not someone that hates it, it's probably not good art.
Yes.
Good art will divide. Like if it's just something that everyone likes, then it's probably pretty milquetoast. Like it's got to be something that divides, like people love it or hate it. That's good art.
I tweeted about this the other day. I feel like there is a bit of a crisis right now with because for so long the internet's been something that's been the saving grace generally because anybody can get their stuff out there. But I still feel like there are forces, mostly it's based on the fact that so few companies own all media, but it makes it so that lowest common denominator stuff rises to the top. Stuff that's not, it's good enough, but it's not something that's groundbreaking. And
yeah, exactly.
Like if you look at the most groundbreaking art that we've seen over the past 20 years has mostly just been in segments of the underground. Like I always bring up hip hop. In the 2010s, hip hop was quite innovative. It still is as a genre, but like only the catchiest got to pop music radio. I'm probably losing you now, but anyway,
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
a lot of media is lowest common denominator because they're so worried about playing it safe to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so they're less willing to take a chance. It feels like it used to be there were more companies willing to take chances to invest in artists who were just kind of doing their own crazy thing.
Yep.
So
totally.
All right. What you got next for me?
YouTube has been around for 18 years.
I'm old.
Yeah. Will people be watching YouTube in another 18 years from now?
Oh yeah. I love that question.
2041, I guess.
Holy moly. Yeah, I think it still will be a force. I really do. I think because it's so dominant now, it's not something that can just be. It may be less of a force, but I mean, the internet is highly consolidated. Most of us are on the same handful of websites every single day, and it's kind of hard to break that anytime soon. So for that reason alone, I mean, YouTube is the second largest search engine still.
Yeah.
And the trend, like today, like Gen Z and younger, Gen Alpha, they're raised on YouTube from as young as a baby, watching the worst and most popular video of all time. I'm not going to say it. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a song. So all the way from that, all the way, like they're raised on YouTube. I'm sure your kids too, but they primarily watch YouTube. It's not you're not watching other streaming services. And I generally see this.
But I wonder if it'll like then move with them, like that generation. Just like say my generation still watches a lot more TV than kids do, or network TV. Yeah. So then like newer kids, like they won't watch YouTube, but then the kids now say they're going to be in their 40s by then or something. They'll be watching YouTube, and then their kids will be doing something else.
TikTok or the next thing. Possibly. The thing I think that YouTube's so good at is whenever there's competition, it either buys up the competition or it does the same thing the competition is doing. And it's investing so much in YouTube Shorts right now that I really think that, and then now we're seeing TikTok being banned, like it got banned in Montana. So I don't know. It's just such a big force. I think it's going to be hard to avoid.
Well, that's good because I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah. But again, when did you start your YouTube channel? It wasn't until like 2015.
2018.
2018?
Yeah. I had a YouTube channel before then, but I wasn't using it really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had one back as far as 2006, but my Mr. Beat channel, technically I started it in 2009. I didn't make any videos public till 2011, but still, that's 7 years before you started. That's cool. Impressive. You've come a long way in a short amount of time with the channel. Yeah, that's really impressive. All right. So do you disagree with me or?
No, that's about right.
Dang it.
Because now things merge too. Like people watch YouTube on their television or
yes.
So you might be watching YouTube somewhere else than what we're watching it on right now, but it'll still be there in one format. Like TV still exists. It's not like on a box with rabbit ears, but
yeah,
it's in another format, but it's still there.
When I went to the YouTube education conference last fall, one of the things they actually revealed was that there's a growing trend of people watching YouTube on their smart TVs. Mobile gets all the focus, and that's still where most people watch YouTube videos. But apparently, that's especially as people get older, they're like, I want to be on the couch chilling, and they'll be on their phone still, but they're doing other things on their phone while they're watching videos on the TV.
Yeah,
So that's the saving grace. Okay, my last question for you is, it's an easy one, I think, maybe.
Cool.
How do you feel about, no, this is a hard question. I'm so sorry. This is a hard question. How do you feel about all the stuff we don't know?
All the stuff we don't know? Like that could be anything, like the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah.
How
do you feel about that?
I am much more comfortable than I used to be. Let's put it that way. Because I grew up in, like I say, a cult that was very like black and white. It had black and white answers. Like they literally had a department, like a question answering department where members of the church could write and they would have an answer for everything. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I grew up like that and I wanted that. And I thought that's what religion or philosophy was all about, is you just have to find the right one that has all the answers. And then the older you get, you realize that no one really has all the answers. And that used to really bother me, but it bothers me less as I get older. So I know that as a human, there's a heck of a lot that we will never understand as humans. And I'm okay with that. Maybe if there's some sort of afterlife or something else or some other realm, maybe we'll learn more stuff, but I don't know. I can't predict it. I can't know about it. So why worry about it? So I think hey, didn't some wise man say there's enough to worry about today? Wasn't that Jesus talking about sparrows falling from trees or something like that?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I like to think about stuff. I love like, I'm actually a lot more into space than I ever talk about like cosmology and outer space and weird ass theories about the universe and the meaning of life and all that sort of stuff.
You could do a chart of galaxies.
Yeah. So I like it, but I'm not going to stress about it.
Yeah, that's a good answer. There is something liberating about accepting not knowing and just embracing it. And it is weird how you think it's kind of counterintuitive. Like because if you think of our day-to-day lives, what kind of gives us a sense of stability, safety is we know our schedule for the day. We know where we're going to be. Everything's planned out for the most part, or familiar. Everything's familiar. But I think once you accept the fact that there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're never going to know, it almost, it becomes exciting. Like, oh, well, but we could know some of it. That's so cool. We could know some of it.
And that's what drives, scientists to discover stuff. And
yeah. Well, so you're also, there's so many different ways you could answer that question. You could be more the pessimistic side or the optimistic side. I always lean optimist, but at the same time, like what kind of really blows my mind is like, because like there could be something out there that is so smart, so above us that we will never even comprehend 0.0000001% of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost like the senses, like, how certain animals, they can sense more than we can.
Yeah.
Like, what is my dog freaking out about? I have no idea,
There's that famous article, What's It Like to Be a Bat or something like that.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. It's that same idea. Like,
yeah,
we don't even know like what is a bat who can like use echolocation and all that. Like, how are they experiencing life? What are they thinking about?
Yeah.
Or your dog or my cat,
Well, and the ignorance is bliss thing, I get that as well. But I do think it would be cool to like one day know what my dog is excited about.
But you know what? Let me go back to religion a little bit. That's actually, people ask me a lot, and I haven't ever addressed in a video, why did I convert to Judaism? I plan to someday maybe talk about it. But Judaism is not what a lot of people think it is. One thing that attracted me to Judaism, once I learned about what modern Judaism is really about, is there's a lot of agnosticism in it. Like this, like you just said, what if there's something that's so beyond our understanding? Well, that's kind of the Jewish definition of God. Like, it's just this thing that's so, like, that's why Jews don't say the name of God. Like, in doing my denominations video, I didn't say that name, and people are like, ha ha ha, you're so superstitious, you won't say the name, that's so silly. But no, I got comments like that, but that they're missing the point. Most Jews don't say it because they think God's gonna like send down lightning if they say God's name. We say it as a way to remind ourselves that God is beyond, like, we can't even say his name. Like, he's so, see, I said he. I mean,
yeah,
I shouldn't say he. God's not a he, not a she. It, like, it's just so out there. So Jews, at least like modern Jews, not like ultra Orthodox Jews, but like kind of just sit with there's something, it's too big for us to understand, but we'll just put a little placeholder there. And rather than just ignore it altogether or not think about it, let's just put a little place mark there and leave it as a mystery. Like,
that's similar to deism. Yeah. Deism is very similar with how it treats God.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right, man. Got a little philosophical. You have one more, right, for me?
I do, and this is such of a weird and simple and practical question. But I noticed over the last year, you've become really good at Twitter. Like, you're rocking Twitter. Like, most YouTubers, like, that have around the same amount of like followers or whatever you call it on Twitter, like, I'll tweet something, I'll get like maybe 20 hearts and a couple retweets, but often I see like Mr. B tweet something and he's got like thousands of likes and a bunch of retweets, and I'm like, the dude is just dropping the Twitter like success things. How did you get so good at Twitter?
It's not something to be proud of. No, I mean, it's outrage. It's, you know how to manufacture outrage, but I always, it's the same reason why I get people to click on my videos. When I have a video that's called "Why Do People Hate Jews?" People are going to click on it. And so, but the problem I've found is, like, a lot of times I'm trying to make a point on Twitter where I am trying to get people to critically think, and the point goes right over their head, and they interpret me in such weird ways. And it's like, yeah, of course they misinterpret me, because it's like one sentence or two sentences. And so, yeah, like, it's frustrating.
So do you purposely try to, like, say you have an idea, do you purposely try to word it in a way that's like angry or like?
No, that's another weird thing. It's like, people get so upset with me on Twitter. Like, you're a nice guy, Mr. Beat, on YouTube. I love your videos.
But why are you so mean on Twitter?
Yeah, you're mean. And I think it's the platform. It's like, because you can't hear the tone of my voice. You can't see my body language. Most communication, as you know, is nonverbal. And so it's challenging. And a lot of people want me to be on their side. And the way the platform works, it feeds into tribalism and outrage. And occasionally, I mean, I just kind of know, like, okay, I got a great example for you. Actually, let's pull this baby up, see if I can find it. I'm going to pull up my Twitter and see if I can find. So the other week, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. Let's see if I can. Oh, there's Cynical Historian there popping around. So can you see that? Is small? Okay. So a few weeks ago, I responded in a very vague way. And the different interpretations of what I said was incredible. What was it? It was like, oh,
I see a chart. That's good.
Oh yeah. What do you think of this chart?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Simple.
You like it?
Simple, but gets the information across.
I was gonna say I liked it, but some people, that was also polarizing. let's see, what was it specifically that I'm trying to find? Oh man, what was it? Because it was one of those things where it was, and I'll post something that's benign, does not get the likes. You just never see it.
Yeah.
It's the crap that manufactures outrage.
Well, I mean,
don't remember what it was. Well, we can keep talking while I try to think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're trying to or not. You're doing well. I'm a little jealous. Like, look at that, like 1,000 likes on something there.
Well, but also a lot of, I do political history, and so politics are always in my mind. I try to avoid watching political pundits because most of them are, they're just reacting to the news. But I do follow the news, not too closely, because you shouldn't follow the news too closely, because a lot of it's just trying to get your attention. It's just developing breaking news that doesn't, most of it ends up not being that important. I said something that was, I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, here's me announcing a book that I just completed, the Supreme Court book, and those don't do as well. I announced a video, doesn't do that well. Wow,
you gotta be more angry. This goddamn book. I'm writing.
But I'm never angry on here. People think I'm angry. I think what it is, they don't like my opinion sometimes.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And that's what at the root of it, I think it's more of a mirror oftentimes too. Okay. Here's something. I just tweeted, there's no laws in the United States banning Christianity. It's a fairly benign statement.
Right. Wow. Look at that.
But look at this person. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is somehow a baiting statement. Poor taste if it is, since the Christians mourning an attack on their community. This is right after
Johnny Appleseed, so
Yeah. Mr. Beat and that other big TikTok scientist have a tint of political bias and baiting across mostly all their videos. It's so easy to trigger people on here, but that statement, is that controversial to you, just reading that? Be honest.
No, I see your point.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of times it's just I know what it was. Okay, so there's this guy named Matt Walsh. I came across him recently, and apparently his whole stick is anti-transgender.
Yeah.
And I was watching a bunch of his videos one day. I was like, man, he's obsessed with this stuff. Let's see if I can find. That's what 8. Okay, here it is. I got to go over this because this is fascinating. It's been too long.
Did he actually mention you?
Okay. Here's what the original tweet was. Ben Shapiro, which,
I don't like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. Over the past few months, my friend Matt Walsh has been threatened to
Ben Shapiro voice.
Yes, I'm very familiar with him. Threatened to the extent that he's had to have a full-time security at his home to protect his family. Now he's been hacked. The tolerant and diverse and kind crowd are celebrating, of course. And I said, this is all I said. Preach hate, get hate. And I intentionally left it vague because the more vague you are, the more likes you get. Right. And I always kind of see how you react to this really says a lot about who you are as a person. It did very well. 5,000 plus likes. But there's so many people that got so mad about this, but the way I was what I was trying to communicate here was, if you are going to be hateful all the time, then you probably should expect to get hate back at you. That's what I was trying to say. But people
live by the sword, die by the sword.
Yeah. People interpreted this as, I thought that he deserved to get hate and that I thought those death threats were justified. That's how they interpreted it. And I get why they interpret it that way, but it's too late by this point. I can't say, oh, this is what I actually meant. It's too late. And this is why Twitter sucks. But it's been good. Listen, the reason why I have it is to promote my YouTube channel. And I actually paid for Twitter Blue. I don't have the blue check mark anymore because I try to change my profile picture and they just get rid of it. I literally, if it weren't for my YouTube videos and that this is now what I do for a living, I would not have social media. I would for sure not have Facebook. I hate Facebook with a passion. Maybe I would have it to kind of keep in touch with.
I haven't been on Facebook for like 4 years now.
Yeah, old friends and family, but yeah, like this. So anyway, that's why I do so well on Twitter.
Cool. Well, you're rocking it.
It's not something to be proud of. Yeah. Hey, if I can get some more views on my videos, and it's all like about tricking people into learning. I always say that.
Exactly.
People like you, because your charts are just so awesome, but also you kind of have this ASMR quality of your voice, like talking. You ever thought about starting an ASMR?
I did once. I actually like ASMR. I don't like the like trendy, like the people that are just trying to do it, but the just real natural stuff. Like when it first came out, I do like it. I find it relaxing. I thought about doing it, but I don't know. You
have a very comforting voice.
I always have like a million ideas, and you can't do them all. So
I'm sure you do. And you're also my 11th cousin. I forgot to say.
So that's right.
Shout out to Gina Blogger
family.
Anything you want to promote before I kick you off here? Because it's been almost 3 hours.
Nope. Usefulcharts.com. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, check it all out.
Watch Mr. Beat.
Oh yeah, you don't have to watch Mr. Beat if you don't want to, even though you're watching it right now. Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and we'll have to do another collaboration here.
Cool. Enjoyed it. This is fun.
Still haven't met you in person though yet. So
one day you'll make it to Vancouver, I'm sure.
Yeah, or if you're ever no, you won't be. Kansas. You avoided it on your way to driving up to Canada. Don't blame you.
Yeah, let's get together in Vancouver.
It's a cool spot. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess make sure I don't have any more super chats here, but I think we don't. So thank you all for watching. And until next time we do this, it's also a podcast on Spotify. If you just search The Beat Pod, it will pop up. And if you have any suggestions for others for me to interview, let me know. Let me know in the comments or shoot me an email at iammrbeat@gmail.com. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.